Howdy ho, Sifters. It's been one hell of a day in Sifted Land. I'm telling you, I've had a day to forget. But hopefully, GameFace episode 43 will turn the day around for both me and for you. Thanks for sticking around. We know it's an hour later than usual. We were trying to watch the Final Fantasy 15 live stream and then talk about it on the show. Unfortunately, there's an hour-long, god-awful pre-show that was actually like the whole first hour of the broadcast, and we didn't want to wait to get the show going for you guys, so here we are. So we totally understand if you guys might want to jump away and check out the Final Fantasy 15 stream. We won't hate on you guys at all for doing that, so it's totally cool. But hopefully some of you guys will stick around and do GameFace with us. I think the first thing I want to talk about is something on last week's show where we talked about the Nintendo NX controller for a good 30 minutes, only for it to be fake.
A good fake.
A very good fake. I want to apologize personally for that, to be honest. I'm usually really good at this stuff, Matt, but it has gotten to a place now with 3D printers that you can make anything.
Yeah.
It used to be when you tried to figure out if something
that one shot with the glare on the screen, like, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a real thing. Like, he built it in a 3D printer. So,
well, like, to get something that's shiny out of a 3D printer is very impressive.
Well, I think they cut, like, if you can watch, there's like a making of video where he shows how he makes it. Like, he actually cut it, like, out of acrylic or whatever. So I do want to apologize. Like, I'm usually pretty good with stuff like this, but yeah. Definitely got the wool pulled over our eyes on that one. It was still fun to talk about, though, and a lot of what we want to do with GameFace is sort of have really good, interesting discussions. So I think that part of it was okay. But yeah, you know, Matt, I don't think I'll ever trust a hardware leak ever again.
You can't tell.
Because it's so funny. Like, in the past, the goal was always, is the photo fake? Is it photoshopped or whatever? And so, you know, we got that first one, and we were very skeptical about it. We were like, probably not real. But then when that second one came out, and look, the guy who did that...
And they're not photoshopped.
They're not.
It's just a fake object.
Yeah.
Very different from that, what was that, Nintendo On?
Right.
Back in the day, the virtual
which was
reality
really
thing.
done well and elaborate. But, you know, you never saw the physical hardware, and here you did. And so... Yeah, I think a lot of people learned a very valuable lesson over the last week.
That confidential property sticker is even very authentic.
It is, yeah. So, and look, I'm one of them. I'm just, you know, when you make mistakes, you need to own up to them, and I'm going to own up to this one. Like, totally got way too excited over this thing. Still, I think the conversation was good, and it generated a lot of conversation on the episode. So, just wanted to address that off the top and apologize to you sifters over that whole scenario. The other thing we want to talk about at the top of the show...
Well, the PlayStation 4K seems to be the real
legit. Deal. Yeah, I'm not going to say that, though.
Wall Street Journal reported on it.
Yeah, it's been corroborated now by like several different publications, and I think Eurogamer also said it got confirmation from an independent source. So that definitely looks like it's happening. I don't know if Xbox One expansion is actually going to happen, but PlayStation 4.5 looks legit. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that in future episodes. Another thing that happened this week, Shadow of Mordor 2 was kind of leaked.
Resumes, man.
Surprising no one. Another LinkedIn resume type leak. You know, this game was Game of the Year on a lot of people's lists the year it was released, so not a big surprise to see a sequel for it. Kind of like the whole thing with Grand Theft Auto this week. Oh, another Grand Theft Auto's coming? Really?
You don't say.
You don't say.
We just want to know when. We don't want to know what.
Yeah, we actually shot the next round of Pactor Factor this morning, and he kind of answers one of the questions about leaks and stuff like that, and some of the leaked games, and he's just like, really? Like, everybody knew these games were coming. It's not a big deal. So, still comforting to know that they're on the way. I know Mordor has a pretty big fan base going for it, so those people should be happy to see that a sequel is indeed on the way, and I'm pretty excited about that as well. I also liked the game. So, that was pretty much it for this week as far as small little stories that I can think of anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy, I guess, is in progress as we speak.
Yeah, which is really disappointing. We really wanted to talk about it on this week's show, but unfortunately it's just not going to happen because all the information is being disseminated while we're doing the stream. So,
yeah, the hour-long pre-show was, I guess,
a real killer.
Bit of a swerve there.
Yeah. Because they had basically advertised that the whole thing was starting at the time that the pre-show started. So Yeah, got fooled a little bit there. But whatever. We have an awesome show full of great topics. Let's get to the big six. So, Matt, Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
In space.
Ooh, they've kind of done that before a little bit.
A little bit.
Not the way they're saying this is going to be.
Right, so Call of Duty Ghosts, everyone's most hated Call of Duty of all, did have a section in it, and you're seeing it right now, that took place in space, pretty much right at the beginning of the game as well. It was almost like a red herring. It was like one of the, a lot of times when you play Call of Duty, they have like secrets.
Yeah.
That you don't know about. So I remember I started playing this game and I was like, what? Like, does this whole game take place in space? And no, it didn't. But there was probably a 5 to 8 minute section where you're shooting through outer space. And again, you're watching it right now. The series has been inching towards the future for a while now, but space?
Like Halo-style sci-fi stuff.
Like, is that what they're talking about? Or are they talking about stuff like this, where you're on, like, space stations?
No, the rumors, the guy said it was, like, far-flung future, like, space combat, kind of like starship fighting, and, like Star Wars kind of stuff. So it sounds like, far-flung sci-fi, like, almost Halo-level, like, science fiction stuff here. Or maybe not Halo, like with aliens, but kind of like, maybe the first space war of humanity kind of thing.
So colonization on Mars, Russia colonizes Jupiter.
Maybe, yeah.
How do you feel about
faction.
This? Yeah, exactly. How do you feel about this, Matt? You think it's a smart move?
Smart? Like I don't even like. Will it like cost them sales if they move out of like kind of the modern military?
Yeah, from the business perspective.
I don't know. Like part of me wants to say that Call of Duty is kind of like bulletproof.
Yeah.
Like in at least for 1 year. Like like maybe I wonder if like people don't like 1 year of Call of Duty. Will the sales drop next? I mean, Advanced Warfare did okay after people didn't react well to Ghosts.
Yeah.
And Black Ops 3 was a giant, massive success. So, I guess, like, maybe I don't know if it's a smart move or not, but it's kind of nice to see them experiment.
Look, I don't really see them playing with gravity in any way. Like, what we're seeing right now with Ghosts, like, this is all, like, floaty shooting.
Right. No, I think you'll be talking... If they do, like, what the rumors are saying, I think you're talking about, like, Star Wars, like, level stuff. I mean, like, everyone will have artificial gravity, and there will be, possibly pew-pew lasers and, stuff like that. I don't think they'll be doing this kind of adrift thing.
And then I wonder if, they use real weapons, or if they're all like lasers and futuristic.
I think maybe you extrapolate into kind of future tech weaponry or something like smart guns or something. I don't know. I mean, more of an aliens kind of thing.
Yeah, I just wonder how far you can go before it's too far. And look, I get Ghosts is, there are some people that like it, and I respect their opinion. Everyone has their own taste in games, but I would say the vast majority of people feel like Ghosts is the worst modern Call of Duty. And so I can kind of understand where Infinity Ward would probably want to leave that game in the dust as quickly as possible, but, going too far, I think, it's possible if it's... I mean, are there going to be aliens in the game? Like,
I wouldn't expect. I mean, if there were going to be aliens in anything, it would have been in Black Ops, right?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
The kind of the conspiracy stuff.
Right.
I mean, maybe that. I mean, I could see them kind of throwing that in as kind of their zombies mode, like it's some kind of alien invasion thing.
Yeah.
But like, I doubt that would be part of the main story.
Because now zombies mode is in every Call of Duty. It's not just for Treyarch's games now. So
it's just sort of an expected component.
And what if they pull like an Uncharted where it has like this weird like twist towards the end where you do discover aliens and
if they're trying to kick this off as like a new trilogy, that'd be one way to end it.
Yeah,
like you actually find some weird stuff. But I feel like the more you do that, the more afield you go with the basic concept of Call of Duty, and then you got to wonder like how does that translate to multiplayer? Like if you throw too many curveballs in the multiplayer, you're going to alienate the people that make it a multi-million seller every year.
Right.
And even if it doesn't cost you sales the following year because it's different teams, that's a rotation of 3 different teams. Like you got to wonder, like, well, are we gonna, then you got to wonder, like, well, what if it, backfires in the sequel to this new one, 3 years on, people just ignore it. What if people are just in for the Black Ops and, they ignore the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that'll happen. I think
Probably
Advanced
not.
Warfare has a big enough audience that people will be excited for Advanced Warfare 2 or whatever.
Well, I
they end
mean,
up calling
I
it.
understand why they would want to, really differentiate. You've got the super far future one, you've got, sort of a more near future one, and then maybe Treyarch handles kind of the more current gen military tech shooter. Because Black Ops 3, while it was future-y, it wasn't, crazy future-y. It was like 2 years from now.
It wasn't Advanced Warfare.
Kind of, yeah.
Advanced Warfare was like a huge departure. It jumped way forward. So, I don't know. Look, I used to be a big Call of Duty player. Honestly, the last Ghost was really kind of the beginning of the end for me as far as like playing it religiously. Mm-hmm. I mean, up until Ghost, I would get Call of Duty and I would play it like any down moment I had. I would play a couple matches of it. Then I got Ghost. I played it online for like a week. I never even prestiged in Ghost, which was the first Call of Duty I had in prestige in multiplayer in like forever. And then Advanced Warfare, I actually did play that a good bit. I think I played it probably through the second DLC pack. And then Black Ops 3, I didn't even play it till the first DLC pack came out. And so, yeah, I'm definitely waning on that series a little bit. So maybe in some ways this could be like the injection that it needs to at least get me kind of excited about it again. Obviously, sales didn't hurt because Black Ops 3 was sold better than Advanced Warfare, which sold better than Ghost. Of course, Ghost was a huge drop-off financially for the franchise. So I don't know, man. I'm just... maybe shooters in general, I just feel like they're starting to get a little stagnant.
You would think, but it's still doing. Black Ops 3 still sold what it sold.
Well, Black Ops 3 is, I mean, Call of Duty is kind of like a sport, it's or an e-sport, as people call it. It is one of those things that, like, people, it's like Madden or whatever. It's like a game with a set of rules that has a base set of rules that rarely change, and then the frivolities kind of around those base rules change a little bit from iteration to iteration. But like, once you're good at one Call of Duty, like, chances are you can play the next one and be pretty freaking competitive. It doesn't change so drastically that, like, all of a sudden you suck at Call of Duty if you were good at it before. So, yeah. Call of Duty in space, I mean, they're crazy enough to do it. I will say one thing, like, they've been pretty bold with this series. People are obviously calling for the return to World War II. Wouldn't that be a slap in the face if people are like, oh no, it's going to be this like space-bound thing, and then it turns out it actually goes back in time, back to World War II.
Yeah, well, it takes place in the far, far future, but then they enter the time sphere and they go back to World War II to change history.
Yeah, that could, I mean, look, there have been cheaper plot devices in games, that's for sure, and that wouldn't surprise me either, because Call of Duty has done some crazy things with its stories in the past, so...
That's, it's really kind of a cheap, like, narrative trick, but it would be a way to kind of get, like a level or two set in an interesting time period that maybe couldn't sustain an entire game.
Yeah. And one thing I would say, too, is it does open up the door for some really cool weapons and things like that. Like, they've done a pretty good job with Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3 of bringing in some new tech, but, I mean, it's really, like, sky's the limit.
Yeah. It really, my instinct says that, like, they wouldn't go that crazy with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's so far afield from what that series is about that I feel like you'd have way too many people being like, oh, what's this shit? Like they don't... Yeah, I wonder if the main Call of Duty audience wants anything resembling that whatsoever. They just want some good, solid shooting mechanics and some, a smooth frame rate. And
I think they'll get that, though, no matter what. That's what I was talking about. Like, there's certain tenets of the franchise that, like, are the same with each game, with kind of the dressing on the outside of it changing.
I just wonder how many people, like, really like that series because of kind of the grounded military... Tom Clancy-ish setting, and if you move too far into kind of Halo territory, even just like in terms of visuals, will you alienate a certain chunk of those millions?
I mean, it won't look. I mean, if it is set in space on some far-flung planet or whatever, like it won't look like a Call of Duty game.
No,
I mean that's pretty much a given.
But it might feel like one.
I think it will definitely feel like one. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that they'll never change no matter what they do with the setting or the plot. I think it'll always feel like you're playing a Call of Duty game, but. To do something like that is a pretty big risk.
Yeah.
But maybe they're looking at it like, well, we can't do much worse than Ghosts, so...
Yeah. Or they're looking at it like, this team has Ghosts under its belt, so, like, maybe you need to really change it up. Because, you look at Ghosts versus Advanced Warfare versus Black Ops 3, you're a little homogeny going on there.
Yeah.
There's a little bit too much. There's little differences, but it's very hard to tell which is which outside of, Black Ops is obviously Black Ops because it's got the title and the number, but like, I could see them wanting to really make each year be kind of different, have that 3-game cycle where like, you're getting this from this and this from this and this from Treyarch.
Which means maybe it's a smarter move to kind of go back and really or go way forward so you're completely different because the other two, you're right, are like the same. I feel like they're set like 30 years apart. I don't actually know what the time frame is, how far they're apart.
I feel like Black Ops 3 is like,
30 years before Advanced Warfare.
In the near future, and Advanced Warfare is more like the end of the century.
Or is like the future.
Yeah.
And then this one would be like the far future.
Yeah. Well, then you get into the question of like, are they all in the same universe?
Right, yeah.
Does anyone care? No.
No, nobody would care.
No.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of Captain Prices through history, that's for sure.
But
one or the other, I think this series is going to sell no matter what. It would take a technical crash and burn on the level like Assassin's Creed Unity to, I think, really impacts the following year's games' sales.
Yeah, look, I think Ghost was pretty close.
Yeah, but like, was it a technical disaster? I never
played
Ghost.
Technically it was okay.
Because I think that's what really, Unity, the backlash on Unity, and I think the attitude towards Syndicate came from the fact that it didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, plenty of Assassin's Creeds had subject matter or stories or whatever that people just weren't into, but like they never felt like, oh, I bought a game that doesn't work before. Right. So I think unless this far future thing is just a technical disaster, I doubt it would make people like abandon the franchise completely. They'd just be like, it was not a really very good one.
They came back after Ghost.
Yeah.
So
Advanced Warfare 2, I'm sure, would bring people back into the fold.
It is a shame, I just want to mention before we move on, it is a shame what's happened to Infinity Ward.
Yeah, speaking of ghosts.
Yeah. Appropriately. I wonder if that's why they called it that. Because it was like the ghosts of the people who used to work there. Like, because I'm sure some of the people who used to work there, or who were working on like Modern Warfare 3 and went over to Respawn, like I'm sure some of the ideas that those people had ended up making it into Ghosts. So, interesting little...
I'm sure there was some residual... stuff, some residual intellectual, brainstorming that probably made it through. Yeah, because you can't take that with you.
You're right. Yeah, and then meanwhile this week, Titanfall 2 comes out. The team is 30% bigger than the first Titanfall. They have Stig, who used to work at Sony Santa Monica, working on their other new IP, which is a huge deal. This guy used to work on God of War, and he's now working with Respawn on the other IP aside from Titanfall.
He's a talent and a half.
Also a really good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, great interview, good dude, and it was good to see that. So, yeah, I feel like Infinity Ward now is really Respawn.
Yeah, it's for the most part. There's still probably a few people left over at Infinity Ward.
People who weren't invited to go to Respawn and were offered huge raises to stay.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what, that was kind of a win-win situation, right? Either you go with Vince and crew over to Respawn and start making different games, or if you stick around, you get a huge raise because you stayed.
Yeah, you still went through some pretty serious stuff, though, one way or the other. That's never a comfortable situation. I'm sure there was, it divides friends, it divides,
coworkers.
It's
why they get literally divided friends?
Oh, yeah.
Because some people went to Respawn and some people didn't. And I'm sure there's some weird fissures going on there between that crew of people. And so
be interesting to see if whatever Infinity Ward became after that can pull this thing together.
Yeah, I'm actually torn on whether Titanfall or Ghost was the better game.
I'll go with Titanfall on that one.
Really?
Not that I've played Ghosts, but
you haven't played it.
I wasn't even interested enough to play. I have it. I got it for $4 or something on some like website super sale thing with free shipping. I was like, all right, sure, but I've never actually opened it. But Titanfall's got giant robots, so
that gives it a leg up. But I would say Ghost is like the more complete game.
Probably.
But that's why I'm saying it's like a tough choice, like which one was ultimately the better game. I think
one of them had a campaign.
Yeah, so. I think I played both of them about equal time when it was all said and done. So, a little rivalry going now between old Infinity Ward and Respawn.
Well, if I could only play one of the sequels, I know which one I'd pick, and it's the giant robot one.
Even if this was set on Jupiter or whatever,
the
new Call of Duty,
I trust Respawn more than in whatever
Infinity Ward is now.
Whatever Infinity Ward is now, yeah. And, well, maybe the new Call of Duty will also have giant mechs. I don't know.
It could.
That's far future. It could be
that
anything.
It could be that you like pilot.
Yeah, maybe this is their direct Titanfall competitor.
And maybe that's exactly their idea.
Yeah.
Was like, let's show Respawn. Wow. It could get interesting.
I will say this.
Now I'm kind of rooting for it to be like in the far future.
I'm a big Titanfall proponent, but I'll say this: if the Call of Duty game has mechs that turn into planes,
or anything else,
you might win me over.
I'm just saying.
That's a little more battlefieldy, though.
Yeah, or just transformery.
Yeah, but I just mean like you don't get to fly things very often in Call of Duty.
No, you're right. You really never do. Drones. That's about as far as it goes. But we'll see. It could be completely unfounded in bullcrap.
Yeah.
But that's what we do. We talk about unfounded bullcrap
here
on GameFace.
We speculate wildly on things that will never be.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. So, Matt, another week, another social justice warrior-related story.
Well,
you don't think this is social justice warrior-related, this one?
I think that is an ugly term that is a dismissive way to describe someone who's trying to say something that matters to them.
Okay, fair enough. So what happened is this week, Overwatch, Blizzard's shooter, has a character in the game, and there was a gentleman who was playing said game, and it became apparent to him that he felt like her poses weren't representative of the rest of the character that is portrayed in the game.
Because she's like the bubbly goofball character, as I understand it? Or?
She's not really. She's kind of like the spunky, like, tech girl, I guess is the best way to put it. It's hard to put a label on any of the characters in Overwatch, because they do have kind of a breadth to them. But, yeah, she's like the spunky, like, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, personally, as someone who's played the game and played with this character and played against this character many times, it doesn't seem that out of the ordinary for her pose for the character that she is, because she's kind of like this in-your-face type attitude. She's got like an attitude, I guess. I guess the best way I could describe it is she reminds me of a girl from New Jersey. When I lived in Philadelphia and you would go out to bars or clubs or whatever, like if you'd ever run into a girl who was like what we would call a spitfire, we'd always be like, oh, she's from Jersey. Because you'd meet these girls from Jersey, you would drive over into Philadelphia for the night to have fun and then drive back to New Jersey when they were done or whatever. And for whatever reason, those girls always had like a lot of spirit and spunk. And so when I think of this character, Tracer, like that's kind of what it reminds me of, is Jersey girls. So
does she sound like she's from Jersey?
Maybe a little bit. She's got a little bit of that kind of New York, like Northeast dialect, I guess. But so the bottom line is she's not like this demure, like reserved, prestigious character. Like she's this like out there, like outgoing, rambunctious type character. So, I mean, honestly, the pose isn't that bad. I mean, really, it's just like basically just her from behind, and she kind of cocks her one leg or what? I don't know. Like
she cocks her hip. It's a hey, look at my ass.
Yeah. So, where do you stand on this, Matt?
Well, I haven't played it,
so Blizzard did come out and say that they had been planning all along to change the pose. I don't know that I believe that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the best PR method on these things. It sounds like to me like some guy this guy said something, had his opinion on this thing, and whoever it was at Blizzard saw that, thought about it, decided that was a valid criticism, decided to change their game. The system seems to be working as far as I can tell.
So the guy said that
I don't think anyone has ever made Blizzard do something they didn't want to do. Is basically so Blizzard was like clearly someone in there was like, okay, yeah, I guess, yeah, kind of right. I don't think that fits the character. Let's remove it.
I think that might be my concern, though, is that it feels like Blizzard may have done something that it didn't want to do, folding to pressure.
Well, I don't see how one guy tweeting something is pressure.
He didn't tweet. It was on their message boards. He wrote like a huge diatribe. And then he also wrote, and a big part of it, and what he said motivated him to contact Blizzard about it, was that he has a young daughter who had got up and watched like the cinematic trailer that we had for our trailer of the week last week every day. She'd get up and say, Daddy, I want to watch the trailer again. And so he would let her watch it. And he's like, I don't want her to be exposed to this character and then grow up and not appreciate like Blizzard. Like he basically wants his kid to grow up to appreciate Blizzard's games and play Blizzard's games, and he felt some way that her being exposed to his character, by the way, which is in a T-rated game, and his daughter shouldn't be watching trailers or gameplay for in the first place. He felt some way that this was going to taint his daughter for her the rest of her life and affect her over the long haul. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's definitely some over-dramatization going on here on the part of the guy who complained.
Sounds like it.
I'm nervous about the fact that Blizzard may have caved to internet demands. I hope that what they said is true, that this was a plan all along. I don't know why. The reason I have a hard time believing it is why, if it's so easy to change and implement, why did I just play the beta for 2 weeks with that?
Well, we were going to change it. Why is it there?
That's what I'm saying.
And like, it's just like we were planning on changing the ass slap thing for Armika all along. And I'm like, no, I don't believe that either, because it just wouldn't be there. And if you were really going to change it, why'd you just point the camera up? That's the thing. You just be honest. Like, say, hey, we heard this criticism. We think it's on the ball, and we're going to do something about it. And that's just how we feel. Sorry,
See, the problem is
I'm okay with that. It's just like when they kind of try to obfuscate. It's like, oh yeah, we were going to do that anyway. Like that just comes off as because it doesn't bother me because I don't care. I don't care that there's one less ass pose in video gaming.
It really doesn't matter.
What doesn't matter. But what bothers me is there are people who do care and do get very angry and loud and upset about it, and these explanations that are clearly not really what's happened. At least I think is not clearly true. I don't think that explanation's true. It's that just fuels their anger over it because it sounds like they're lying to you.
Well, most of the reaction to it has been negative. I mean, if you look around at people writing editorials and all the YouTubers and whatnot, pretty much all of them are unanimously saying this is bullcrap. Don't let one person. I liked the character the way it was. I feel like it does represent that character, her pose.
Well, the people who made it don't, apparently.
Or do they? Or it was just this one guy who...
Why would Blizzard cave to one guy?
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I'm pretty sure Occam's Razor says they didn't, and someone in there decided that guy had a point, and they just decided to change it. Yeah. Maybe everybody in Blizzard had to bow to the one guy in charge of the project, and they don't agree with him or something, but that's an internal issue.
But Matt, don't you find it strange that all this seems to just be happening in the last year?
Strange?
Yeah.
What do you mean strange?
Well, because Blizzard never changed characters in its games when they were almost done before.
Well, I mean, I guess strange is a way to...
And it's not just Blizzard. And this week it was announced that they're changing one of the characters in Star Ocean 5 because they feel like she looks too young, which, I understand a lot more than this one.
Well, they put larger panties on her.
Right.
That's about. And that was funny because no one even said anything about that yet. They're just we think the West...
No, they were preemptive. They talked about it.
The West might not react to this very well, so we're going to do this. And... my favorite part of that actually was the reactions from the Japanese players who were they basically went crazy over that, screaming why don't you give us one version and them the other version? And I'm like, that's a good question. I mean, clearly,
there's cultural differences, obviously.
Yeah. But it's weird that you would, there have been plenty of instances where the Japanese version and the American version of something were different in that regard.
Yeah.
And it's weird that they would just all up front just we're just gonna do a safe version for everybody. When you know that that's going to cause problems.
But that's what's crazy is that it's become so prevalent in the West that not only Japan used to be reactive to it, now it's proactive to it. It's saying, okay, audiences in the West or someone's going to complain about this, so we're not even going to show it this way in the first place. We're just, or with Koei Tecmo and Dead or Alive Extreme 3. They're just we're not even releasing it in the West because we know it's going to happen. It's going to be a crap storm of people raising a stink about this game. And so I feel maybe Blizzard did cave to some pressure here. This isn't something that Blizzard would have done 2 or 3 years ago. It's only in the current recent climate. And, it can be argued whether, a lot of it depends on your perspective, but it can be argued whether the change is good or bad or whatever. But I think the issue that I have with it is that you're having these artists changing their art from someone else's feedback. And we've talked about that before, about how if I were a painter and someone was trying to tell me how to paint my painting, I'd tell them to screw off and that whole thing. But, Blizzard, I think why this bothers me so much is because it is Blizzard. And I just feel like this old school Blizzard never would have done this. I feel like, now they're a part of Activision, and they're part of the whole mothership, and I just feel like their perspective is...
You think Activision has that kind of sway on them?
Yeah, of course.
Because I was under the impression that Blizzard pretty much was Blizzard. Like, that was kind of part of the thing. Like, Blizzard doesn't have to listen to anybody.
Well, I'm sure they have a lot of sway because, they're filling the coffers almost as much as Activision is at this point. So, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like seeing Blizzard do stuff like this, that's slipping away. Like, that autonomy that they had.
It seems like a slippery slope argument. I don't really believe that. I think... Why is this stuff happening more and more recently? Because people are starting to listen to people other than people who are like you and me. Like, there's more to gaming and more to the gaming audience than straight white males now.
No, I get that.
And they're starting to listen and
this was a straight white male who complained about this, by the way.
Yeah, but like, you're still talking about, there's a lot of, women who probably would be like, well, like, is it necessary for her to shake her ass like that at the thing? Probably not. I mean, there's also the argument that, like, if you don't like that pose, you don't have to use that pose. Because if you pick the final pose...
You do. We showed some video of that, actually, where you can choose it.
But again, like, if that's just something that the developer's like, we decided... Because they didn't change the other kind of poses with the other female characters in the game.
Because that's the whole thing. Like, people were saying, well, those other girls are supposed to be sexy. Like, who says, like... a character or a person is supposed or not supposed to be sexy. Like,
well, they're designed, so like you can say they're designed to do whatever they're supposed to do.
What do you mean?
Like, it's not like you're saying like, that person is designed to be sexy. You're saying that character was drawn with huge tits and a nice ass is designed to be sexy.
All video game characters are perfectly proportioned, though. So is the girl...
Someone didn't play Dead Rising 2.
Well, I did, but every girl in this game is a bombshell. Perfectly fit. I mean, obviously the chest may change a little bit, but there's no overweight characters in this game. No female characters anyway. And I often wonder what the response would be to, like, overweight female characters in a game. From women and men.
It depends on the depiction, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, look, this is all...
Like, if you put in a fat woman like Rufus style, like from Street Fighter 4, just like as a comedic moron character, you probably would get some blowback on that.
That's what I'm saying. Think about that.
Not even in the sense of, like, not even in the sense of, like, that's what you're going to get, but it's like, there's so few overweight women depicted in gaming, and here's one we finally get, and it's like a clown, basically. Yeah. Whereas, like, and people will say it's like, Rufus is a clown too. Yeah, but there's also more overweight men in gaming that are not.
But that's what
jokes.
I'm saying. Like, men are treated a lot differently in games than women are.
Yeah.
Like, nobody ever complains about men being, like, too beefcakey or overweight or anything. It's just like, it's a dude in a video game.
Yeah.
Period.
Because that's what we see.
Right, but why is it different for women?
What do you mean?
Why
is
no one's going to complain about a male character in a video game flexing his biceps or showing off his six-pack abs or flexing his ass or whatever. Like,
I can tell you why, but you're not going to believe me.
Go ahead for it.
Because when we see that is a power fantasy for males. That is something we look at, and it's like a thing like, I want to be that dude who's like flexing and is awesome and he's strong and he kicks people's asses and he's like a fucking hero. He's Marcus Phoenix. He's all roided up and he can cut a man in half with a chainsaw sword and it's awesome. I'm into it. And then like the women, when you get complaints about they're sexy and they're sexed up and they show their ass and all that stuff. Well, that's also for us. Like that's not like a woman's ideal of what she wants to become and what she wants to fantasize as in a powerful situation.
What would that woman be?
Well, that varies per person. You're probably looking at not that a woman's like power fantasy can't be a sexy woman. Go look at Xena. A lot of like Xena, Warrior Princess, is like an example of something a lot of women have supported and really enjoyed as their kind of power fantasy. But there's more to her than just her tits and her ass. And in a video game, part of the problem I think is that none of these characters are developed much beyond just their physical signifiers in a lot of cases. So, like, if you've got a dude who's like a beefcake, like, awesome hero, like, well, that's all we want, because, like, that's awesome. I want to be that guy. That's cool. Whereas, like, the women generally probably are there for us to enjoy and look at and, like a stripper or something kind of thing, because that's what dudes like. That's what we like to look at, right? But like if a girl's trying to play that game, she's like, well, there's nothing here for me. And that's kind of like what the complaint is.
I disagree with that, though. I mean...
Well... Good luck. if you like, I'm not really the one to talk to about that. You
Yeah.
should probably talk to some women about it.
I have talked to women about it, and they like playing as strong, powerful women, just like we like playing as strong, powerful men.
Yeah.
Like,
But often girls in video games are not that. They're just, sex bombs or girls to be rescued or whatever. Like, the idea of like characters like that in Overwatch that are like, their own characters with their own abilities and their own powers and their own kind of, they can hold their own against the other characters like on their own terms. Like, that's not an entirely, common thing, And I understand why in a game like that, maybe someone would complain about, like, oh, this character doesn't really have this sort of sexy angle to her, so why is this one pose like that? Do you really think if I made that observation, I don't think I would expect Blizzard to get rid of it. Clearly this guy maybe did because he wrote such a huge diatribe about it. Like, I don't know if it's reasonable to think that a character's one pose that has a little sexy flair to it is going to ruin your daughter's opinion of Blizzard forever. But
do you think women want to play as unattractive women in video games?
It's not about being unattractive. It's about being not just there to be ogled by the boys.
But that has nothing to do with this. She's very powerful in this game.
Yeah, we're talking in general terms, though, and I'm saying if there's nothing else in this character's makeup that kind of does that sort of like male gaze movement, then why is that one pose there at all? It's because it's like, hey, she's got a pretty good ass, and let's show it. And that's, to some people, that's not a good enough reason for that.
Yeah.
Apparently not for this one dude who thinks his daughter shouldn't think that about that one character. I don't know. I haven't read his
because he's actually the one who says, like, these other two characters, I'm fine with it. This one specific character, I'm not okay with.
Well, sometimes, it's like the the Dead or Alive Extreme 3 thing. I think you're right. There would definitely be complaining about that game if it was released here. But I have asked about that game to a lot of my female friends who are, very big on not having gratuitous, cheesecake, sexy stuff in their games. And they all universally said, like, look, I wouldn't play it, but, like, I don't mind it because that's what that game is. Like, that game is very boldly just saying, like, we're here to be TNA and, like, we're basically like a
ironically,
centerfold.
that game does rub me the wrong way.
You think?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Because, like, that's the thing, like, that I've heard from people that normally would be termed kind of an SJW thing was like, well, no, that is what it is.
It has no redeeming qualities, though.
It has redeeming qualities if you want to see, like, digital girls shake their butt.
That's not redeeming, though.
Well, it is if that's what you're trying to... That's what I'm saying. It's basically softcore porn. It's it's what Cinemax used to run late at night.
Yeah. And probably still does.
Probably still... Yeah, I don't know. Does anyone have Cinemax anymore?
I doubt it.
But what I'm saying is, like, because that's... The game isn't, like, trying to, like, present some other kind of game or any other kind of, like, serious, like, other whatever type of genre or sci-fi epic or whatever, and then they just sort of, like, cram in. It's like, oh, by the way, stare at this chick's ass for a while. Like, that's the kind of thing that, like, I think sets people off in terms of these complaints more often, whereas, like, if it's just like, yeah, this game is basically porn. Like, there it is. Take it or leave it. Whatever. And it's like, and that's not minded so much. Probably because someone who isn't into that doesn't feel like they're missing anything. If you're not into that, there's no reason to play that game. But, like, I think, you see people that kind of get put off by this whole, like, oh, I wanted to play this sort of, like, big adventure game, and then in the middle of it, I had to put on the chainmail bikini.
Yeah, look, I really don't give a crap whether they change her stance, like, as far as the game, and, like, it's not going to change how much I enjoy the game.
Right.
I just don't like precedents set like this where the fans are controlling the content that ends up in the game.
Well, that's kind of the double-edged sword there, is we want them to listen to us, but we don't want them to listen to us.
I honestly don't want them to listen to us at all. Like, I want them to make the games that they want to make. Like, I don't want this crowd-funded game development. I don't want it. Like, if I wanted this guy's idea of a video game, then I'd buy his fucking video game. Like, I buy Blizzard's games because I like the games that Blizzard makes. I don't like crowdfunded Blizzard games where they're letting, like, random people on their forums tell them how to build their games. Like, I just don't like it. I don't like the precedent that it sets. I don't like that they're allowing outside influences because they're good at making games. They do a great job of it. And look, this is a very kind of surface and petty element of its game, which just makes it all the more ridiculous that it's such a huge story. But it's like, when you start there, like, what's next? Like, what are they going to allow fans to change in another game? Or maybe in this one before it's finished. Like, who knows? Like, I just don't like the precedent that it sets when you're letting, like, your fans tell you what to do to your games. Like, I would have been much more proud of Blizzard if they had stood up and said, look, we appreciate your concerns and we understand them, but this is our game and this is what we want to make. This is our vision. For them to come up with some kind of half-cocked excuse for why, okay, yeah, we're going to change it, like, that's what bothers me. It's just...
I just don't believe that, like, that is something... I mean, I'll worry about that when they start listening to the, like, long, 14-page screeds people write about how, oh my god, it's OP, this is unbalanced, and like instantly change the game in that regard. This one, I mean, I admit that my reaction to this, if I were Blizzard, would have been like, fair enough, we hear you, don't use that pose.
Right.
Like
she has like 10 poses.
Like if it was, I mean, I would maybe feel different if like that was what she did when she won. Like that's just her pose, and it's like, oh, we don't, I don't think, and like, okay, well, and even then, my reaction would probably been like, you know what? From now on, you're going to be able to choose different poses for the characters. Like I would have maybe implemented the choosing of the pose thing.
Yeah.
So to this, like, I don't really get why you'd remove it entirely if it's so player choice open.
Yeah,
I mean, is it? I mean, for someone who that's not good enough for, I don't know if you're ever going to please them anyway.
Exactly.
And
that's a good point.
So, so my reaction to this is like, well, it's nice that they listen and that they're open to that kind of criticism, but at the same time, I really do feel like you don't have to use it ever. If you never have to see that pose.
Yeah, if you don't want
on
to.
that character, if you don't want to, on your own character at least. I mean, I guess I haven't played the game. I don't know. Maybe do you see everyone's win pose at the end?
Yeah, you kind of do. Yeah.
Well. Like, what if I hate somebody's jacket?
It's
I don't know.
So petty.
But like, and it's like okay, you can complain. Yeah, and then I wonder about that guy. It's like, well, maybe that he must not have a problem with that. You see everybody else's win pose, because otherwise, wouldn't he have a problem with the other female characters who have similar kinds of win poses?
He said that those other characters were established as sexy, quote unquote, characters, and so he was okay with that. He felt like Tracer was not developed as that type of... And I don't know how you can develop anything from a character when you're just running around shooting other people in the face. Like, I just think the whole thing's ridiculous.
Well, I'm mostly surprised that they didn't kind of fall back on the idea that, like, hey, it's player choice. Whatever you want to use as your win pose, go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really have that option in Street Fighter V because they have a much more limited poses. So changing that, I mean, you don't really have an option on that.
Right. Yeah.
I do wish they would have just changed the animation, because I still think that the camera shift in Street Fighter V is very obvious.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which to me is like, that's my problem. It's like you want to cut out like kind of gratuitous sexy stuff. Like I'm fine. I don't care. I'm fine with that. The internet has porn for us. Like
right.
If you really want to see a cartoon ass, Google will deliver. Believe you me.
Yeah.
But like. You kind of, like you kind of clumsily move the camera up, like that just doesn't look right.
I just feel like
then you're impacting the game in a weird way. Make a new animation.
I feel like this kind of new movement in games and some of the outlets as far as games journalism is concerned is kind of doing the same thing that like Gamergate does, but on the other side. It's like they try to shame you if you don't agree with their perspective. And I'm like you. I don't really care if there's a girl shaking her butt in a game or not. Like, all I really care about is it fun to play, and is it well balanced, and kind of that part of it. I don't care about the aesthetics as much, but there's a lot of people that do. But it's like when these people are trying to tell me, like, oh, if you're okay with that butt pose being in a game, then, like, you're like a Gamergator, or it's kind of like politics. Like, there's no middle ground. Like, either you're on one side or you're on the other. And if you're not on one of those sides, then you're the bad guy. And, like, I feel like there's a lot of gray area to this, and I don't feel like a lot of people look at it that way. I feel like it's like you have to be on one side or you have to be on the other. Like, I don't like that somebody might consider me or might think that I don't respect women because I think there's nothing wrong with that pose being in the game. And I don't think it's right that Blizzard is changing the game based on fan feedback. But some people will say, oh, look at Shane's perspective, he doesn't respect women. Like, I think that's garbage. And, like, I don't know. I just feel like when these instances come up, it just bothers me. Like, I don't like that our hobby is being split into these weird, like, factions. Like politics. Like, it was already bad enough with, like, the console wars and fanboys, and now there's, like, this other, like, split or rift. It's like, are you an SJW or are you a Gamergator? It's like, I just like frickin' video games, and I respect the people who make the games, And I feel like they're really good at what they do, and I should let them do what they do and not meddle or, and like you were saying earlier, balance and things like that. I'm fine with that type of feedback. Like, if fans want to say, look, like, I use this weapon with this attachment and I'm just mowing people down, like, that's something that needs to be fixed. Like, I'm fine with that. But when it starts talking about the aesthetics of a game or the tone of a game, that's where I feel like that's what the art part of games for me is. And that's where I feel like people are stepping over the line. Like, just this guy, like, writing and, like, just how entitled he is to write Blizzard and be like, I don't like this about your game. You need to change it. Like, screw you, dude. Like, who are you? Like, go raise your daughter. Stop letting her play games and watch games she shouldn't be playing or watching. Like, go be a dad. Like, why are you on this forum writing a 3,000-word thing about some stupid girl player's butt poke? Like, it's just insane what is, to me, what is going on in the industry right now. And, like, this is just another example of it. Blizzard is a developer I never thought would cave to something like this. Maybe they're telling the truth and they didn't, and it was in the cards all along. This game has been in beta for months, and that pose is in there.
Well,
like,
the funny thing is, like, when someone brought this up to me the other day, I thought it was another thing, where the latest patch had removed, there were, I guess, around...
You thought it was the reverse.
No, I thought it was, because I hadn't heard about the pose thing. What I thought it was something I'd read the day before, where I guess they had around, like, the outhouses on a map, there had been, like, kind of like magazine, like, spreads of, like, the female characters in the game, like, kind of scattered around as though, like, the guys who were using the outhouse had been, like, jerking off to the picture, like you know, like magazine
that was a
photos.
story, yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, they removed those in the patch.
Right.
I thought that's what the controversy, have you heard this Overwatch controversy? And I'm like, what, like the magazine? And the person who was trying to tell me about the ass pose removal had not heard that. So I'm like, oh, you mean the porn mag thing at the outhouse? They're like, what the hell are you talking about?
There's
like,
a porn
what the hell
mag?
are you talking about? Like there's two different things on that? Yeah. So it's like, clearly I don't know, like Blizzard, it sounds almost like Blizzard did like a cleanup run?
They did.
I don't know what happened. Like and like, it's, to me, it's like, I hear your slippery slope concern, but like, I just so do not associate that with Blizzard in any way. I mean, Blizzard is, like, might be number one on my list of game companies. It's just like, fuck you, and we're going to do whatever we want.
Right.
You remember back when they were going to take flying out of the game?
Yeah.
And how much, like, screaming and yelling and just strife it took to get them to put that back into World of Warcraft?
That's what I'm saying. Like
they have always been the company that didn't. They always had the attitude of, like, we know best. It's our game. Don't bother. So my instinct on this is to think that someone in there, someone with a decision-making power on Overwatch said, like, no, I agree with this guy, let's do that.
That's where I feel like things are just starting to get out of control when Blizzard is folding. Like,
I don't know, that's
folding.
why
it bothers me so much.
But it's just, is it folding, or is it just they made a creative choice with their product?
But look, Matt, you know how video games are made. This game has been in R&D and development for probably like 5 years. Like, not even exaggerating, like 5 years.
Probably more with Blizzard.
Probably more. They have focus tested this game to crap. They have redrawn that character, I guarantee you, probably 20 or 30 times. There are probably 15 animation routines, poses for this character that they threw out and got rid of and decided on the ones that are in the game. Like, you don't do that much work and put that much thought into a product and then all of a sudden on a whim decide, you know what, that's terrible. We don't like that. We were going to remove it. Like, it doesn't work that way, Matt.
Sometimes
you know
it
that.
does.
It does not, though. You know it doesn't work that way.
If it didn't work that way, there wouldn't be reshoots in movies.
This is video games. This isn't movies, dude. There's differences between games and movies, believe it or not. Lots of differences, and this is one of them. Like,
plenty of things change at the last minute in these things.
Not stuff like that, dude. Not
remove pose?
No, not unless there's pressure from the outside. Like, you don't do that, like, yourself. Like, you've already thought about this stuff.
I think
way
you're
too
over.
long.
One guy writing a screed on their forum is not pressure.
What?
That's one dude. Who cares about one dude?
Obviously they did.
Well, then someone in there also agrees with him. That's what I'm saying. Is like
someone in there agrees that, like, this could turn into a controversy that we don't want to have to deal with. It's not worth it for us to keep this in here. Let's just get rid of it. That's what I think happened. They looked at it. They're like, well, let's see, what are the options here? The option is we leave it in. This guy goes fully nuclear and turns into a jerk and creates a hashtag about it, and it turns into a disaster, or we just remove it. So they just removed it. I don't think for a second that Blizzard already was like, yeah, we're going to remove that. I don't believe that at all. The pose is so
I don't
innocuous.
believe they were going to do it already.
Right.
No.
So that's pressure. That's what made them change the game.
Is that pressure, though? Like, if I say, hey, this thing on the website, maybe that should be over here, and you say, oh, yeah, that's right. Did I pressure you to change that?
It depends on how you approach me. If you come into my forums on Sifted and with a bit of a, like, hey, bro, tone, then yeah, that's pressure, without a doubt. And that happens. Like, people come on the site, they're like, I don't like this or that. Yeah, and you feel pressure to make a decision and either go with them or stay the course that you'd already plotted. And it's just, and with the site, it's the same thing. Like today, somebody sent me a message about our game evals and was like, oh, you know, I wish that maybe you had like a category in your game evals that like was subjective and was just like the secret sauce category. Like, this is the vibe of the game category. And that's not how we set them up. We're like, no, we want our game evals to be objective. You get to put your own subjective stuff into it by setting your game eval ratings. So that was a case where, yes, I did feel pressure when I read that. Because it makes you second guess what you're doing. Either you decide to stay the course and what you thought about, which in my case, I thought about our game evals for a couple years before they were ever implemented. And I implemented them. Somebody's complaining about something that I worked on for a couple years. And you feel pressure. You're like, okay, well, it makes you second guess yourself and say, okay, well, maybe my thought processes weren't right. And so you do that mental gymnastics and you think about it. And that's what Blizzard did. And they're like, is it worth it for us to keep this in here or have a potential issue? And they decided, no, it's not worth it. Like, let's just get rid of it and this will all go away. Because it's one pose. Probably the way they looked at it is like, this is one pose out of like 9. Who cares? It's not worth the risk of this turning into some big hashtag whatever dust up. So, I don't know.
Maybe there was controversy on the team in the same regard, and someone finally used that as leverage.
Right.
But I still feel that if there's one company that knows how not to listen and feel pressured by screaming crazy people on the internet, it's Blizzard.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's why this seems so out of character and so odd to me.
Well,
and it's why we're doing
I
talking about it.
Well, I take the opposite on where I think, to me, because I think that Blizzard is very well accustomed to knowing how to handle feedback in that regard, it makes me think that there was either already controversy on the team over should we keep this or is this appropriate for this character, or someone just was like, hey, what do we think about this? And everyone's like, he's got a point. Maybe we should do it.
Or they were like, not worth the bullshit.
Yeah, maybe. But, we'll see if like somebody starts to decide to write a 3,000-word screed about how this gun that I really like should really kill people every time I pull the trigger, whether I'm pointing at them or not. And I feel like they're probably not going to do that because that's a lot more important than a win pose.
I would recommend watching, by the way, and it's curated on Sifted. Total Biscuit did a great commentary on this whole thing. In fact, we probably should have had him on the show via Skype or something like that and got him in here to talk about it because he was on point. Like, he basically did. And look, there's tons of them. Like, watch Total Biscuit's thing. And if you watch that and then still feel the same way, come back next week and we'll talk about it. I think he may change your mind on a couple things at least.
Well, he never has before, but I'll give him a shot.
There's a first time for everything.
He's no Jim Sterling. That's all I'm saying.
I like Total Biscuit. So let's move on to the next topic of the Big Six Let's Players. We've talked about Let's Players, YouTubers before. Controversy has come up this week because the developer behind That Dragon Cancer, which is a game about his son, who I believe was 5 years old, had terminal cancer and ultimately died of cancer. And he made this game that was supposed to be some type of therapeutic for him to help get over the grief of his son passing away. And so this week he comes out and says, according to Steam, our game has sold about 14,000 copies. And I don't know if you remember or not, but this game was a bit of an internet phenomenon for a good 3 or 4 weeks. Everyone was playing it and saying how it made them cry and one of the most emotional experiences they've had playing video games and things like that.
And that's one of the things that really surprised me when this story popped up, was that this thing has been talked about so much. It was really a hot topic for a while.
Yeah.
And the fact that it hasn't sold enough to make a profit.
Yeah, it hasn't even broken even.
It was shocking to me because it was really the hot kind of serious art game topic for a week or two there.
I mean, at least more than that even. Yeah.
I mean, is that everybody was kind of doing their the obligatory op-ed on.
Yeah.
And the fact that those so few people actually bought and played it was surprising to me. Maybe it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it was.
So that's what we're going to talk about here is he feels that Let's Plays and YouTubers are at least part of the reason why the game has not generated adequate sales. I've seen some comments on this where people are like, he shouldn't expect to turn a profit on a game that is supposed to be therapeutic for him and is supposed to sort of be this this tribute to his son who passed.
Well, that's bullshit.
I disagree with that.
No, I don't agree with that at all. It's just, if you put out a product, you should hope to make a profit on it.
Yeah. And my perspective is like, if he makes enough money so him and his wife can go on a vacation somewhere to kick it for a little bit and maybe blow off some of the steam, like...
Or maybe pay off some of the exorbitant medical bills I'm sure they have.
Exactly.
Because
I have no problem with this game turning a profit, for one.
No, not at all.
In fact, I would hope that it does, like, at least make him
Most
some
people
money.
just set up a GoFundMe these days.
Right.
So, a product and, getting profit from your work seems like a way better way to go about it.
Yeah.
I am freezing, by the way. If you hear like my voice kind of shaking a little bit, like it is so cold in here.
Our studio is really cold tonight for some reason. The AC is just kicking, but
yeah. Because I just hear I sound like I'm just like it's fucking cold in here.
That's
people.
why I always wear long sleeves to record. Always. I think I've worn short sleeves like 3 times ever.
It hasn't been this bad for a while. I mean, back when we first started last year, like sometimes I'd finish like directing the thing, and I was like pressing buttons and I couldn't feel them. I couldn't feel, like my fingers were numb. I couldn't feel anything. But I digress.
Yeah. So here's the thing. He's saying that Let's Plays of his game, and look, I did a YouTube search of Let's Plays for this game today, and it was just an endless, endless scroll of Let's Plays for this game. Because it's one of those games where people react to it. They cry, they weep, whatever. And I mean, it was literally...
It's like the flip side of of screaming at horror games.
Right, yeah. It's the will they cry ideal. So,
like, how long can you go? And I've seen those. Like, how long can I make it through that dragon cancer before I cry?
Right, yeah. So, do you feel like they have a leg to stand on here? Or he has a leg to stand on here? I guess the team was 8 guys that made this game. They said they worked on it for a couple years, full-time.
I think he does. I mean, I think it's definitely part of it. I mean, part of it is also that people... some people just don't pay, full price or whatever for a game they think is that short or that
Some people
linear.
don't want to pay for games that make them cry.
That too, maybe some people don't want, there's also, I know there's a very strong religious streak through it, and that, there's some people just don't want that in their games.
Right.
I understand.
Yep.
But I think he's right in the fact that it's a very linear game. Like, if you play it, you basically have the same experience as everyone else. It's not like there's a lot of variables in it, and it's so narrative-based that I think an argument can be made that just watching it gets you not too inferior an experience as playing it.
Yeah.
It's not like, I can watch someone play, Overwatch, all day, but I still want to play it because, I'm not going to have it anywhere near the same experience as like watching you play it on a live stream. It's not remotely the same thing. But if I watch you play that Dragon Cancer, I'm probably not going to have a very different reaction when I play it myself.
Now, one argument I see, and look, people I feel like have been kind of nasty over this whole thing, to be honest with you, but one argument I always see is, and I think a lot of people like actually said this to this guy, is like, if you don't want to make a game that people can get everything out of by watching it, then you may need to make a different kind of game. Which to me is complete bullcrap. Like, so
like if you want to experience a thing, you have to pay for that thing. I can do it too.
Right.
It's like, what does that mean? I mean, I know we all hate paying for stuff, but like at a certain point, you got to draw a line. I mean, that's practically just the same justification people use for piracy.
Here's the disgusting thing about this. It really ticked me off today was when I was looking at this endless scroll of Let's Plays of this game. I just, my eyes were just going cha-ching, 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 cha-ching.
They are making money off of it.
All these people. I mean, there has probably been on YouTube alone well over $1 million made on this game by Let's Players and YouTubers.
And the reaction to it was really weird because it kind of came up because there was music rights flagged on it because of the music in the game.
And they lifted those.
And they did lift them, and it was not the thing that like gets your account banned or anything. It was just the thing that's like, hey, like
they take a bit of the revenue,
But like, it was amazing to me to see all these YouTube streamers or YouTubers like on this like kind of really just hardline like, no, you don't get any of my money.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like, but you wouldn't have
any of that
anything
money
to show if this game didn't exist already. And it's like, and they're like, well, no, you got your money from the sale of the game. I'm like, but
no, he didn't.
But you're apparently not.
He lost the sale because you played this game in front of all these people. And here's a lot of people are like going back to the argument where the people were like, well, then make a game that isn't exhausted by somebody else watching play it. Well, that's like saying like
that means you lose a genre.
Yeah.
It means like you lose a type of game forever then, by that logic. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, the other part of it, too, is like, okay, by that logic, then why aren't we allowed to sit and watch other people watch movies on YouTube? Think about it.
Yeah.
There's no difference. It's just because it's a movie. No, well, you can't do that. It's a movie, because movies aren't supposed to be like, let's watch it or let's play. It's like, it's insane. What's the difference between watching somebody play a video game and watching a movie?
In this case, nothing.
Nothing.
Really.
Nothing at all. Like, if a movie gets put up on YouTube, that sucker gets pulled down, like, right away. And what's the difference between that and a story-driven adventure game? There's no difference whatsoever. I mean,
not enough of one to matter, and certainly not enough of one to, not be able to use the same lost sales argument.
Yeah, I honestly feel like, for certain genres, like, Let's Play should probably be illegal. Like, either that or there's some kind of a revenue sharing setup where they get, like the developer gets a cut of the money from the ad revenue for those Let's Plays.
I think a revenue sharing setup is the most logical way to go about it, because you're never going to be able to clamp that down completely.
They clamp it down for films.
Yeah, but like part of that comes from the power of the movie studios being able to control content. But
it's not even the power of the studios, though. It's the ability to ID match. Because with the movie, it's the same every time. So you can create that image that you can then match other people's content to. With a video game, it never plays the same way twice. It's like, even a game like this, like just walking a little differently, that creates a different image that makes it hard to match.
That's why they use music. Because somewhere in there you're going to pick up that snatch of music that
helps too.
Matches.
Yep.
But then look at like all the way they do the Let's Play stuff, where like there's a picture of them up here, and there's like horns going off when people subscribe or whatever.
Throws it off.
Like, they're all completely like random almost in that regard. I don't know how you police that, so I think just sort of some form of revenue sharing would be the most logical.
It's not that hard to police it. You just search it. Search for the game.
Some form of revenue sharing would make the most sense, but like I don't know if YouTube is equipped to do that, and I don't know if YouTube is interested in becoming equipped to do that.
Well, here's what happens with YouTube, and this just happened with the last episode of Pactor Factor, and I'm just so sick of dealing with YouTube, I didn't even fight it this time. We had a little piece of footage from Lego in the last episode of Pactor Factor that went on YouTube. He's talking about Toys to Life. And basically, there was a 15-second clip from a Lego game in there, and they make all the revenue off of that video. All of it.
Wow.
15 seconds out of a 19-minute show, and they make all the revenue from it. All of it. That's how it works. That's how YouTube is set up.
Copyright law is amazing.
It's not even law. Like the thing is, it's like it is fair use. Like he's talking about the Lego Toys to Life game,
but you can't fight it.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. Like the amount of views that Pactor Factor gets on YouTube is just not worth the hassle. So I was just like, go ahead, make your money, Lego. Like, and I think part of it too is like, yeah, people just give up and that's what happened with YouTube. That's how YouTube, and I talked about this on the GT show about how YouTube kind of helped with the demise of GT because people were stealing our content and uploading it there. It's such a huge beast. It's like Viacom gave up. They were like, we'd have to hire 100 people to sit and search YouTube all day to find all the content that's being stolen from Viacom and posted on the website. You just can't. So you're right, though. Music, ID match is a good thing to do. And it worked.
Nintendo's very good at finding their stuff.
Well, right. They will hire the 100 people to look for that stuff. But
you remember those.
They also ID all their trailers. So when they upload a trailer, they put it through YouTube system. So any little snippet of that trailer that you use, it'll pick it up, and then they make all the revenue off your video.
You remember, God, what was it? I don't remember where it was, but I remember an interview years and years ago from a guy who, like in the 90s, had worked as his job at Nintendo was he combed through all popular media to find references to Nintendo's products, and if anything was not okay by Nintendo standards, he would flag it and chase it down and see if he could get rid of it.
Yep.
and like he's like, I watched a lot of porn with
Waiting
Mario
for
in it.
Mario.
Yeah, it's like it's like they really do actively police that, but I don't think that Dragon Cancer guy probably doesn't have the bandwidth to do that.
No, you don't. And you're a small guy. It's like you against the world, basically. It's you versus the internet. And you versus the internet, you lose every time. But it made me sick to see how many people had made so much money. I mean, some of these Let's Plays had like 5 and 6 million views. That's like $6,000 just from that one video right there. Like, and you just see one after another after another. You see all these people sitting in their bedrooms making money for playing this game for 2 hours. These guys worked on this game probably 70 hours a week for 2 years straight and are in the hole. Like, it's just wrong. Like, something has to be fixed.
I mean, if I were in the position of the YouTubers, I would be more than happy to, especially, if Ubisoft bugs me about it, I'd be less sympathetic. But if like an independent developer who made a game based on certainly something so personal with such a small team, it's like, hey, like, we need to get in on this, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it.
A lot of these arguments about this and about, the same...
Especially because these Let's Players, you can just Let's Play another game.
Right.
Like, you've got all these games lined up for you to make this money off of, and this one game needs some help.
But see, here's the thing, Matt, is that the games that really do well with Let's Plays are games like this. Right. Because people are like, I don't want to spend the money on them. I can get everything I need out of this game by sitting and watching the game. Like, Firewatch actually ended up doing pretty well. Like, it's one of the rare games in this genre that actually sold really well. Soma still hasn't broken even. Still. Yeah. It's been out for months and months and months.
Even after it was on so many, best of the year lists.
And why do you think that is? People watch it on YouTube for the jump scares and whatnot. Like, it's a real problem. And like a lot of the arguments I see against this are the same arguments that I see and then delete on the YouTube version of my discussion about GT, about ad blocker. Like, you probably would believe it, but probably 70% of the comments on that video are just rants against me about ad blocker. And I delete them, almost all of them. Like, if people are respectful and they pose a good argument, sure. But most of them are just like, screw you, Shane. You don't know what you're talking about. That's the one I really enjoy. You don't know what you're talking about. Actually, I do know what I'm talking about. I lived it. Like, you're just some kid surfing the internet. Like, you don't know what you're talking about.
I have noticed a very large number of people who do not work in the industry who think they know more about what you're talking about than you do.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Not just on this topic, too. I've seen a lot of that around the internet. Yeah. And it's kind of amazing, and especially when it comes to game trailer stuff. Where it's like, he doesn't know. I'm like, he was in the middle of... Like,
it was me, bro. Like, it's
like,
funny.
Did you yell that at, like, Lieutenant Winters after, like, they were in Band of Brothers? It's like, you don't know what the Battle of the Bulge was. Like, it's like, what the...
I watched it on television, so I know better than you.
I read a book once.
Yeah. I'm guessing you're probably referencing NeoGAF, where everybody hates me.
Not just there. No, it's all, some places, other places as well. But yeah, that's where the threads pop up.
Yeah, NeoGAF hates me for whatever reason. I'll never figure it out, because all I've tried to do is serve those kids, but whatever.
Well, you don't say the things they want to believe, I guess.
I guess so. That must be part of it. So, I don't know. I feel like something has to change here, Matt. Like,
I think so. I mean, I totally agree with you on this one. I don't... I don't. The YouTubers come off as greedy, and even as someone
and entitled.
I didn't buy that Dragon Cancer. I did not play it. Yeah. But I also didn't watch a Let's Play of it. I will probably get around to it eventually. Yeah. Maybe sooner rather than later. Now that I know that the dude needs some sales. Yeah. But like, it would never occur to me to watch a video of a game and decide I don't need to play that game because of it. And while I don't think that's an unreasonable conclusion in some games, that's also like a game like that, I wouldn't watch. I'd play it. That's me. I'm a player.
Yeah. You also can afford to buy pretty much whatever game you want.
Yeah. Or also I can afford to wait until it's like $2. One day that game will be real cheap, and maybe that's not the nicest way to go about purchasing your games from the indie circuit, but like, I can't play them all. I can't buy them all. So, one day it will be like, oh, it doesn't make any sense not to buy it for this price, so I'm just going to get it, and like it'll
be part of a humble bundle or something.
A nice bundle, or like some crazy Steam. I bought some stupid RPG I'd never played on Steam the other day because it was 59 cents. Yeah,
it's a shame that somebody made a game that affects so many people so strongly.
Yeah,
to make them cry. I mean, I think a video game I don't know if a video game's ever made me cry. Ever.
No.
This guy's created one that's made tons of people cry, and he can't even make his money back.
A couple of them made me want to cry, but not for the reasons
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
saying.
Not because they made me sad.
But yeah, and again, as I think two people that do espouse the games are art idea, like, here's a game being art in a way that we don't see very often.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that it's a narratively driven kind of, but it's about something very personal. It gets across emotions that I don't think it's easy to get across without the interactivity. And again, you can say that you get a similar experience from the Let's Play, but I think a lot of the emotional draw and a lot of emotional impact that it has if someone's watching a Let's Play comes from watching the Let's Player react to it.
Sure.
They're your kind of avatar for the interaction, and like you see, this person's being made very sad by experiencing this, so I'm going to be sad with empathy for that person because that's just how we are.
Yeah.
So you are kind of, you've kind of got this like emotional middleman there in the form of the Let's Player, and I can see why if you worked hard in years of your life and on this subject that was about the death of your child, you would probably look at that and say, "Oh, you got that must be the worst thing in the world." Well, I mean, second worst because you already had the worst thing in the world happen to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But like for that to be compounded with this sort of like feeling of like, well, they're taking this from me somehow. Like, yeah, like. I got nothing but sympathy for the guy on that.
Hopefully, somehow, some way, he will make his money back on the game and maybe even turn a profit.
Eventually, I think.
But I think more importantly, like, hopefully something changes with YouTube with this stuff because, again, like these 2-hour experiences, like a lot of times they're disposable, but sometimes they're not. Like sometimes they do something that other games haven't done, and like you need those experiences to push the whole medium forward in general. So hopefully something can change there. They can figure out some kind of new ID program so that these developers don't have to spend crazy money hiring somebody to hunt down all the instances of this stuff. But
and hopefully
when they do chances are, being realistic, none of this is ever going to happen.
Probably not. But if it does, hopefully the system also does not instantly flag anyone who does just a review of them.
Right.
Because that's the thing is you don't want legitimate fair use being caught up in that.
Yeah, because the other part of it, too, is like, some of these people aren't saying anything. They're just playing the game. Like, they don't even have any commentary over it. Their faces in it. It's just literally the game played.
Well, because they know there's a market for it.
Exactly.
From people who don't want to buy it.
And they're not linking to the developers and saying this is where you can buy it. Like, there's basically leeching money off of the hard work of these people, which is pretty disgusting in my opinion, so...
The Wild West out there.
It is, for sure. We're all learning, but some people are learning a little more slowly than others, I think.
Or faster.
I guess you're right.
I don't know.
If that's the kind of learning that it takes to be successful, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So, all right, let's move on. We're going to talk about probably the most high-profile VR game that was released with Oculus this week. At least as far as reviews are concerned, it's probably getting the highest scores, although they've kind of been all over the place. We're going to talk about Adrift. Now, you have not played it in VR. You've played
I've only
just
played
the 2D.
Regular monitor.
Controller.
Yeah, Xbox 360 controller.
Yeah.
The whole deal.
Is it gravity in video game form?
Well, no, because there hasn't been nearly as much action.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Well, I mean, you're very slowly maneuvering your way through a wrecked space station. I mean, that's basically what's happening. And like, every once in a while in Gravity, a giant swarm of debris will fly by and almost kill Sandra Bullock. And in this case, it's just like, no, it's just, you got to be just jet over there, and you just don't run out of oxygen. So it's I mean, it's very, very pretty. It's the physics are impeccable. Everything just looks like a real space station. It looks like they thought very carefully about how everything would work until you get to there's a couple of gamey elements, but I'll get to that. But basically, it starts after this giant space station has been ripped apart by something.
It doesn't tell you what.
No, it's just something happens and you wake up and you are floating in space. And
oh wow!
You were the.
That's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, you were the captain or the leader of this the crew on this thing. And you're apparently the only survivor according to the computer, and you have to basically claw your way back because your suit's leaking and it's damaged, and like you have to get there's like oxygen bottles floating everywhere, so you can like kind of pick that up and like your propellant is broken or something, so basically the suit has to reroute oxygen into your propellant system. So like whenever you use a jet of to change your direction or something, you're breathing oxygen out. And
just like gravity,
right?
Where they use their.
So if you if you maneuver too badly or too erratically or too constantly, you will suffocate before you can get to the next.
So you basically have an air meter that controls both what you're breathing and your propulsion.
And your movement, yeah. And it's slowly leaking the whole time.
Oh, wow.
At least the beginning. Eventually, it looks like maybe eventually you can fix the suit to a certain degree, but I haven't gotten to that point yet, if that is indeed in the game. So you have to maneuver your character back in, and you kind of get to this like hub area where all the computers are, and I guess there's like an escape vehicle, but to make the escape vehicle work, like the computers have to be online, and they're all like screwed up, so like you have to go like bring all of them back online, and each one requires you to go to a far different corner of the space station, all of which have been blown off the space station, so you have to kind of maneuver your way through empty space to get to them in these various conundrum areas, and some doors are locked, and some, it's very Metroid.
What is the objective of the game?
Other
than surviving.
I think the objective is to activate everything so the escape pod works and get back to Earth.
So fix the escape pod and get back to Earth, basically.
Now, the fact the fact that the escape pod doesn't work unless the space station is functioning perfectly seems to be a flaw.
Yeah.
But you maybe want those systems to be on their own
I
circuit.
thought NASA was smarter than that.
This is like some future thing.
Yeah,
like,
it seems farther off than
Mission Control everything seems to launch and come down in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Which I'm wondering where they put that.
Yeah.
But it's also it is a walking simulator, just with no
it's a
walking.
Floating
it's
simulator.
a floaty simulator. You gather the requisite audio logs and emails and stuff, and it starts to you start to kind of piece together what's going on. I have sort of an odd feeling right now that whatever happened to the space station was my fault.
Right.
I don't know for sure, but it's just sort of
some hints here and there.
There's some sort of I'm sure they're going to get into the survivor's guilt thing at some point, because every once in a while you have a moment where you see something and the character she'll like react to it like in a way that like clearly she feels responsible for it.
Now, are you the only person in the game?
So far,
you haven't ran into anyone.
I've run into a corpse of another astronaut. But so far, like the computer says everyone's dead. Will that still be?
Right.
I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't cause it. Maybe someone else is in there doing it. But I admit when I first came in today, and Shane was running testing out the B-roll he'd loaded into the TriCaster. He was running the beginning of Call of Duty Ghosts, and I looked up and I'm like, wow, Drift gets really different later.
I'm gonna get a gun.
I haven't found the MP5 yet. I gotta start checking every nook and cranny. But so it's like it's weird because it's like it's not for the impatient. Like if eventually
because you're floating everywhere, it's really
but eventually
slow.
like you find a it's weird. You find like there's like little gamey elements where like you find like an EVA suit repair station. So you get in it and like a big like laser goes over you and like fixes your suit. Like it fixes the cracks in the glass.
So there's some sci-fi.
A little bit. I mean, it's reconstituting the polymer of your view screen or so. So I guess it's remolding the plastic of your view screen. But the thing is, like, you lose air and you get like cracks in the view screen every time you bump into something too hard.
Right.
So like you have to really maneuver yourself through these areas and not you can't just like.
That's the patience part you're talking about.
And like there's long stretches of like empty space where like for some reason. Your oxygen leaks like twice as fast when you're out of the small areas. Like when you get out into open space, the oxygen leak gets like way worse. And I'm like, I don't think anything works like that.
Yeah, I don't think.
But the reason is to limit where you can go, so you can't just fly anywhere you want. You have to
just break the whole game, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like Metroid, and and like the thing is, like when you get
how is it like Metroid? You mentioned that earlier.
It's very lonely. You're a solo woman in a suit.
Yeah. The basics.
You get to these little locations where you get to that thing. That reminded me of Metroid.
Yeah.
And just like when you're looking for these like cores you have to fabricate for each computer system. And when so far when I've done that, the console room that lets you do that also will analyze your suit and lets you fix part of it.
Okay.
So like the first one like fixed the oxygen container on my suit. So instead of holding half a bar, I could hold the full bar.
Right.
And now that I could hold the full bar, I could get from that the area I'd gotten to with that computer, I could then get back to the hub across the much larger gulf of space that I had to cross without my air leaking, because it leaks so fast when you're in open space. That way, so like each time it seems like so and other things are like disabled. Like I have a booster that doesn't work. I have like, you know, the
you have all these abilities. You start out with nothing.
Yeah, but eventually you get these abilities, and those abilities not only make life in general easier, but they make you capable of getting to the next area.
Yeah,
so
that's very Metroid.
So that's Metroid to me.
Yeah. Nobody, by the way, no one has mentioned this in any review I've read.
Really?
Nope.
That's weird.
Yeah, I think it's a great insight on your part, though, that you've kind of figured out that I wouldn't be surprised at all. That was one of the design aesthetics for this game.
I mean, you know, and it helps that you're going through these circular doors that open and all that.
No, I totally see it.
Yeah, and the physics are great and really cool. You know, there's like weird little gamey things here and there, but that's okay. You know,
is it fun to play? Because it honestly, it looks like one of those games where like the first hour you're kind of in awe.
Yeah.
But then after a while you realize that you have to move around really slowly and like...
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's interesting. I don't know if I'd call it fun, really. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's not like anything else I'm playing right now or haven't played in a while. Good. You know, even though I have, you know, I did Firewatch and I did, you know, it's like a walking simulator, except it's got like a neat twist in that you really have to deal with the environment and the physics. And I'm getting better at maneuvering around and stuff. It's actually not that hard. I mean, it's not like a super unforgiving physics engine. Like they do kind of like cheat a little bit to make it more playable. But there's like little things where, you know, you've got a little mini map, little mini like radar thing, but it's not very good at telling you the height of something. So there was one point where I was like, I kept like looking for it in this one area, and I'd go out of the station and look. Is it out here? Is that it? And then my oxygen started running. I was running out of oxygen bottles, and I'm like, oh, this is the challenge of this game, is to like figure out where I need to be, what I need to do, what I need to look at before
without running out of oxygen.
I run out of my supplies. So it's and then all of a sudden it became a little tense. So I was like, and you know, and I haven't died in the game yet, so it's not super hard. But that's only after like the first section. So I wonder if it's really going to get interesting. You know, I'm wondering how varied they can make kind of the environmental challenges in this game. You know, and keep it fresh for however long
because it could just be a one-trick pony.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where it's like...
I mean, I don't know how long the game is.
Get through this obstacle course before your oxygen runs out. That's pretty much the primary mechanic, right?
That's a fair way of describing it. Yeah, I'd say so. But again, the fact that like the suit gets like slightly upgraded each time you hit a milestone, like it makes it more interesting.
But then like the next obstacle
then the next thing
is a little longer.
Yeah, everything's gonna be a little longer. It's gonna require you to do these things.
It doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah,
it just kind of scales along with how much oxygen
it just allows you to tackle a different kind of challenge.
So who would you recommend this game format?
People who like the walking simulator stuff, but they think it's a little too, you know,
boring.
If you'd really like a Z-axis, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different. It's very different. I mean, in VR. I bet it's amazing. Like I'm playing it.
Hold your lunch down.
Trying to imagine like looking down at the Earth and all that.
Right.
I mean, it's just. I'm sure it's incredible. If you have an Oculus Rift, just don't even think about it. Just get the thing.
Yeah.
Like just do it. Like I mean, I think it looks beautiful on my screen already. Just look.
It's a gorgeous game. You can just see it in the footage we're running.
I almost died a couple times just because I kept looking at stuff. Like when you're out in the middle of space, because at a certain point, like you can't just constantly boost to where you're going because your oxygen's leaking so fast that you kind of gotta go in one direction and let inertia carry you there. And while I'm doing that, I'll just like turn around and look at stuff and look at and it's incredible. Like, and the detail, like just the little like particles of.
You also have a monster PC.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks good on any setting. I've tried it on medium settings, and it still looks great. The one thing I was disappointed with in terms of visuals and physics and stuff is that things don't really impact your visor. So like there was a room where like there were droplets of water everywhere, and I kept trying to run into the water. It just goes over you. It doesn't splash against your visor at all. So I was like, oh, I wanted to really pull the water physics out of this,
Or you wanted to touch the water to make it splinter into like 5 drops of water and just kind of play with the whole physics that way.
I didn't try that. I should see if that's possible.
Give it a whirl.
Because if you hit the button, you hold the button to interact with something, but if there's nothing there to interact with, your character just kind of swipes at the air to like knock something out of the way. And I wonder if that would work for the water.
Are there large floating like globules of water?
Yeah, I mean,
in the game.
Yeah, they're like a couple inches in diameter. A couple of them. Cool. It looks like so. There's floating stuff everywhere, and like you can, and even all the paper and stuff that's floating, like you can read it if there's writing on it. Like you can read the writing on it and stuff. It's the attention to detail is incredible.
How much does this retail for?
20.
20. That's not bad.
Yeah.
And how long have you played it?
About an hour and a half.
Okay.
I would say.
I think I read that it's only a few hours long.
I would guess I'm about a quarter maybe through, maybe more. Maybe
just by looking at like your air gauge or whatever.
Well, because like when you look in like the hub, you kind of like where you have to repair all the computers. There's 4 monitors. The first one's active, and then you have to bring back stuff to fix that. And now I'm fixing the next one, so it looks like there's 4 major. I would say there's 4 major excursions in the game. That would be my guess. And there's probably like an end game where you try to get in the escape thing and something goes wrong and you have to like Metroid your way out with a timer or something. Maybe that wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, me either.
But that is total speculation. That's not a spoiler unless I'm right.
Unless you're right, and then it is.
But then I spoiled it for myself too.
Exactly.
So. Yeah. So I would guess it feels like it's 4 to 5 hours maybe, but I wouldn't. I have no idea. I've done no research on game length or content in that regard.
You're just playing it.
Because I'm just playing it.
All right, cool.
So if you're easily frustrated by slow games, don't touch it. Like you're gonna just get annoyed by the fact that sometimes you got to just hit the jets once and then just let yourself float to the space. Let it happen. And there's a lot of looking around through very identical looking environments because it's a space station. It's all modular. So so every once in a while I'll hit a point where I'm just like, wasn't I in here before? Nope, I was just in a room that looks exactly like this one.
Yeah.
But there's usually little slight differences if you will pay attention. But it really wants you to pay attention. And again, if you have an Oculus,
no brainer.
Like, what are you even still listening to me for? Like, try it, do it. Yeah. I'm sure in VR this thing is incredible.
All right, so let's move on to the next topic of the Big Six. So this week, Japanese executive at Sony went on record saying that it's a possibility that PlayStation VR, the head-mounted display, could potentially end up working with the PC. I was shocked to see this.
So was I, because Sony doesn't do that. Sony exclusives do not come to the PC.
What's the logic here?
That sounds like a contingency plan if it just does not work on the console.
Yeah.
Like if they don't sell enough on the console to justify its existence, they will shift to a PC model and be kind of the economy VR version.
I don't see any way, shape, or form that this works.
I just don't understand why he'd say it.
And why would Sony, like you said, release any first-party... Look, even if it's just first-party PlayStation VR games, why would it release any first-party games on another platform?
I don't think they would.
I don't either. So what good is PlayStation VR on PC then?
I think that's all it would be. It would be like, oh, you don't want to pay $600 for an Oculus Rift? Here's our $400 one.
Yeah, but the software has to work with it.
Well, it's just drivers.
I think it's more complicated than that.
Depends like how intricate an experience they're trying to be. If they just want to be, hey, put a thing on your head and see things in 3D, there you go. I don't think they're going for the boutique experience here. I think they would just be going for some kind of you want a relatively cheap headset that can do kind of VR-y things. Like here's a PSVR for your PC.
I'm wondering if it's only for theater view.
I would not be surprised about that.
Just watching movies, television on Netflix or whatever.
Look, already, what does that mean? Like you're gonna have a PlayStation camera on your PC too to make that? How far do you go? You make the Move controllers work on the PC as well? Like it just seems like that's just an unprecedented move for Sony, and it doesn't seem like why would you want to get into that fight? Because I feel like by the time they get around to that, Oculus is gonna have that locked up. It's over.
There's no market unless it launches day and date working with PC. There's no market for Sony in PC VR. There's just not.
So I don't know what that guy is really talking to me.
Do you think maybe he's floating this out there just to assuage consumers so that if they're having second thoughts and maybe that's that one little thing that puts it over the top, well, one day it might work with PC too?
Maybe. I can't even speculate on the logic on this one. It's so out of character for them.
It really is.
If you're going to put anything on PC that people desperately want from Sony, just do a PC version of Bloodborne.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think people would much rather have a PC version of Bloodborne than a PC version of PSVR.
Yeah, I am struggling to see the logic behind this at all. Look, I'm also struggling still to see the logic of the PlayStation 4.5
Yeah, well.
And does this tie into it? Is this a part of that? I don't know how that would be, but
I don't know. The more like we hear these weird little things, I just feel like we're wandering into a whole new weird area of the game, the history of gaming here. Like it's
the times they are a changing.
Yeah, the VR thing is gonna, I don't think it's gonna be the cultural. I saw someone post earlier this week calling normal like monitors dead rectangles, as though like 2D displays are forever dead and obsolete. It's like, no, dude.
Yeah.
It's gonna just like 3D TVs killed 2D viewing.
There.
Yeah, easy, bro. 15 years from now, maybe.
There's a lot of people putting a head-mounted display on for the first time this week.
Oh, yeah.
And look, it is going to blow their minds. It blew my mind the first time I did it at a trade show. I was like, oh my God, this is going to like change everything.
No doubt. But you still have a long way to go before the masses kind of adopt that.
No, I agree 1,000%. I'm just saying I kind of understand why some people...
It's like the PlayStation 4K. It's just like, everything's 1080p and 60. And most people that your average consumers will be like, what is that?
What does that
mean?
What
are those numbers? Like, what does that mean? They don't know.
No, they
don't know it's inferior.
They're like, but I have a 1080p TV, so it's always in 1080p.
It's always in 1080p. It's called upscaling. It's great.
No, they don't even know
Does
upscaling.
it support Auto Motion Plus?
They just assume because their TV is 1080p that everything that is displayed on it is 1080p.
The little creatures in nature, they don't know that they're ugly.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. I wish I could be ignorant something like that sometimes, just oblivious to the facts.
Or like it's like going home and being and all the TVs at your parents' house. Like, why are all the aspect ratios wrong? You're watching everything in stretched. What is this?
Yeah, stretched or it's like they've been running it in like 4x3, and it's like permanently burned like black bars into the side of their TV. It's funny.
I'm like, oh, we got the Xbox 360. Why do you have composite hooked into an HDMI converter?
Yeah.
Where did you even buy this?
Who told you to buy this? It's so odd, man. We're going to be like that someday. People are going to come to our house and be like, what are you...
We'll have our VR signals backwards, and like
exactly.
We'll be all like racist to the robot servants and stuff. It's like we'll get there.
We will, yeah. Really something to look forward to there.
Dad, you're so intolerant of the cyborgs. I don't know what's wrong with you. It's like, in my day, people were all flesh, and we liked it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's I'll cut limbs off to have bionic arms. I don't care. Yeah.
So here at the end of this whole discussion, I think that this is all just bullcrap. Like either he's completely talking out his butt and it's never going to happen, or if it does happen, it's just going to be like a theater mode type thing where it's really nothing more than like the Samsung Gear VR, where it's just like you won't play games with it. It'll just be a passive experience. You watch movies, you watch films. Maybe there's like some of those vaguely interactive like VR experiences where you can kind of like look around an environment. But I really don't see it being a case where you are playing VR games with PlayStation VR on PC where you're actually interacting with the objects in the VR world, I guess is the best way to put it.
That would be a pretty impressive trick.
It would be like... And you're right. Like, are they going to make a PlayStation camera that works for PC? Because that plug that plugs into the back of your PlayStation 4, there's no plug like that on a PC.
That would be a whole different set of hardware.
They'll create a dongle or
an
HDMI adapter like you were talking about.
Yeah. VR to HDMI.
Exactly.
Very fancy.
Yeah, I think this will probably end up just being a non-story.
Yeah, well, especially because like I feel like what the Amazon's PlayStation VR core bundle like pre-orders sold out in about 3 minutes.
Yeah. By the way, I went and pre-ordered mine yesterday.
So did I.
Did you?
I got one on Amazon when they went live, whatever that Tuesday morning.
I physically walked into a GameStop.
Brave man.
Talked to other human beings. And put my credit card down and pre-ordered the core bundle of PlayStation VR. I had to put $100 down at GameStop, which was like the minimum. They're like, well, the minimum is $100. How much are you going to put down? I'm like, 100. Like, who puts down like any more than that?
Yeah, GameStop Inc. Take more of my money to make interest on in the intervening months.
That's exactly what they do. Yeah, that's exactly why they want you to put more. I think it's ridiculous. I had to put $100 down to reserve one. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if it was like something that wasn't going to sell anyway.
Right. Like, dude, $100. I was like, really? That's a lot. I thought I'd have to put it down like 20.
That's why I went with Amazon because they don't ask anything.
Yeah, they don't. And of course I asked them, I'm like, if I don't want this, like, do I get my my money back. Like, I don't have to buy this. And he's like, yeah, sure. And gave me a fist bump on the way out. So
whatever. We'll transfer it to any game pre-order you want.
Yeah. I hadn't been inside a GameStop for I don't know how long.
Yeah, well, I was in a GameStop the other day.
Oh, you were?
Maybe it was yesterday because we're next to it. We were
right.
at Target and it's right there. And I walked in and I bought a Roy amiibo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
People there were really nice. Seemed knowledgeable.
Yeah.
I was afraid that they'd like pre-order
I don't really
the
have
wrong
bad
bundle.
GameStop experiences with the people who work there. It's all with like I don't like their policy. I don't like that they're a pawn shop.
Yeah,
basically.
that's really what it is.
It's not the fault of the people who work there.
Right. So yeah, I did order it. Also, I think we may be getting an Oculus. From Oculus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I finally found the right PR person, and they're like, oh, well, obviously you caught us at the exact wrong time because we just launched, and we don't have any units, but when we get more in, we'll send you one. So it looks like Sift is going to be getting hooked up with an Oculus, which is pretty sweet. So now if I can just save some money to get the Vive.
Sift is plugging into the Matrix. Let's go.
We'll see about that. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I think this is going to be...
So can we, if we both end up getting our PlayStation VRs, we'll do the show that week in the
virtual
goggles.
reality, yeah.
We'll just wear the goggles all the time and you can just look at us.
That would be a lot of fun for the viewers. If you could only see what we see. We could maybe, you know what, that new Playroom, we actually may be able to do something, like, once we get a hold of the software, like, there may be a way to do a show in VR.
Yeah. Or maybe...
Wouldn't that be crazy?
That's Facebook's ultimate goal.
It is.
Is basically to get people meeting together in a virtual room.
I mean, that Playroom for PlayStation VR, it kind of looks like it might do that.
Since it's the only thing that comes with the system.
Or, yeah, exactly. Or at the very least, maybe it's just like a few people, and maybe we could do like one episode a month in VR, and just have like a few people that we pick to come in and like actually be in the show with us in VR.
Yeah, like the Pactor Factor questions, basically.
Yeah, it'd be cool. So we'll see. What I love though is how it's opening up all these avenues to think about things in different ways and do things in different ways. So
it'll be interesting to see what like the Mario 64 of VR is.
Yeah.
Like, the games that codify the experience.
I think we're still waiting. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. But like they're coming.
I think Adrift. People thought Adrift was going to be that.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly. Here's the thing: is like I think if you play Adrift without VR and you didn't know it was a VR game, you'd never really think twice about it because it's not. Yeah. It's very pretty, but it's not really any different from anything you've already played in terms of a first-person game. Yeah. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, I think that we're still waiting for the VR games that are like, wow, this is something that takes this way of depicting this interactive medium and changing how you use it.
Yep.
So, and it's exciting because, like, let's face it, we're kind of out of those for the standard way of playing video games.
Right,
and so we're kind of back in this like kind of wilderness with
New
it
frontier,
again. And it's cool. It's always nice to have those.
It's exciting. I've seen some comments on like social media when we post like the episodes, like the archives. Like a lot of people have been like, I'm sick of hearing about VR. And I felt sad when I read that. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you saw on NeoGaf, Evil Lore, the owner.
I honestly have not been on NeoGaf in like 8 months.
I love NeoGaf. I go there every day.
I don't need to go anymore. It's like I have Sifted.
Well, true. You can just see the stories, but sometimes I like to see what people react to. And Evil Lore posted like a sticky at the top, but basically, the owner of the site, and he basically said, VR is a real thing. It's just as important as new systems being launched, and there's going to be a lot of threads about it. There's going to be a lot of talk about it, and like if you don't care about VR, just stay out of them. I mean, it's basically just like, okay, everybody,
don't grief.
Yeah, but and also like everyone who's excited about VR, you should be excited about VR. It is a big thing. New threads for new news. The whole like he basically said like I am the owner and I'm saying get excited about it. Post everything you want about it. Talk about it as much as you want. This is real. This is all these things are important. And no one should be like, oh, keep
raining
it all
on the parade.
Yeah, no one should be like, oh, there should just be a VR thread, and you should just all post in there. It's like, no, this is a real new thing.
And I wonder too if how many of those people that are the naysayers are people who aren't going to be able to afford one, and maybe they feel like they're being left in the dust a little bit, or maybe they're afraid that like
or even if they if they're not even necessarily can't afford one, or just don't want to spend that kind of money for it's like. I'm sure if you really love the idea of having like a cutting edge kind of experience with video games, and all of a sudden it's like you're kind of being blackmailed into spending like $600 on this thing, I can see how you'd feel that way.
Yeah, for sure. And even the fear of, like, if you're not interested in it, being kind of left alone. It's like, you know...
I mean, there was sentiment similar to that when the Wii blew up.
Yeah.
It was like, well, what if games are like this from now on and I don't want to play them?
Right, yeah.
That was a real...
Is my hobby going to go away?
It was a legitimate worry.
Yeah.
You know, and it proved to be slightly unfounded.
Slightly.
But I totally understand that. I mean, I wasn't too worried about it because I thought it was a fad from the start, more or less. But I totally understand why someone would be worried about that and upset about it. And when you're that upset about it, if it's something that's important to you, you lash out.
Yeah, I don't think you should be worried about it though. Anybody who's watching this show right now, like, look, I've tried all the VR. It's awesome. I really love it, but traditional gaming is not going away.
No.
It's never going to go away.
It's just like mobile. It's like mobile's not going to take over traditional gaming.
Right.
There will always be a Call of Duty. There will always be a Mass Effect. There will always be those kinds of games because people still want them.
Right. But it is really exciting, people. Like, if you haven't tried it yet, like, it is really flippin' cool, and it is completely different, and
it's a new paradigm.
It's exciting. Like, and we're going to talk about it on GameFace. Like, that's just the way it is.
And it's not like... it's not like this is replacing games. It's a new kind of game the end.
And we're going to keep talking about traditional games on GameFace as well. But this is like, this is like the first big shift since like the N64. Like, it is a big deal.
It's the biggest thing since, polygons.
Polygonal graphics. So we're going to talk about it. And, as the games get better, we'll probably talk about it even a little bit more than we are right now. So
hours and hours spent trying to tweak that stupid Unreal entrance title screen thing so the particle effects didn't look right. Oh, 3DFX cards.
Yeah. Oh, I remember.
Good times.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's move on to the last topic of the Big Six. And what you're seeing right now is an illusion. We're not really talking about Final Fantasy 15. We originally wanted to, but because of the scheduling conflict with the live stream and their live stream, unfortunately we weren't able to watch the live broadcast to know what's going on. So probably it'll be a next week's show, although sadly, it's like, it really sucks to be right on the cusp.
Yeah.
We're like an hour away from being able to talk about it on this week's show.
Right.
Next week,
also, like, feel
care.
free to tell us in the chat what happened.
Yeah.
Like,
fill us in.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've been sitting here staring at cameras for the last hour plus, so yeah, feel free in the chat to let us know anything big that happened or anything mind-blowing.
They showed, does anybody, when does the demo go up? That thing.
So we do have a replacement topic for this one that we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about Metal Gear. So Game Informer this week they did a great feature on basically the history of voice acting in the Metal Gear Solid franchise. So I don't know if you remember or not, back when there was the whole Kojima Konami dust up, and I kind of made the point that, everyone's kind of demonizing Konami, but, maybe at the end of the day, it isn't all Konami, and maybe Kojima has a little bit of blame in this whole thing. And in all honesty, I was surprised. Like, people didn't flame me over it. Like, I really thought people were going to be like, what you're talking about, you're insane, but people were actually pretty receptive to that idea. This feature that Game Informer did, where they interviewed all the people who were involved with Metal Gear voiceover from the beginning until now, was quite an eye-opener. It was great, by the way, and you should check it out on Sifted. It was curated to the site. It's long. It's like an hour long, but it is worth it. So they interviewed David Hayter, and I never thought I would ever hear some of the stuff that was coming out of his mouth. Matt, did you watch the whole thing?
I read a transcript of it. I wasn't able to watch it. But,
wow.
Hater's gonna hate.
Hater gonna celebrate, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has no love for Kojima whatsoever.
No. Says he never met him.
Oh, I didn't even see that part.
Yeah, he said I'm sure he's a good, creative person. I've never met him, but as a businessman, I don't really think much of him.
So the thing was, they were trying to get rid of him as the voice of Snake since Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater.
Long time ago.
Like, Kojima wanted him out in the PlayStation 2 era.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, though. Metal Gear Solid 3 is about the time I felt like Hayter's voice wasn't cutting it anymore. Like, I don't have any malice towards David Hayter or his performances in the older games.
Yeah.
But I think game voice acting improved a lot. From Metal Gear Solid 1 to about around the time of 3 and continuing to this day. And at a certain point, he just sounded like he was doing an impression of himself.
No, you're right. I'd agree with that. Like, I still think, like, even in that interview, he was doing the voice. Mm-hmm. And it's like he was acting. Like, and look, it is called voice acting.
Right.
But a lot of voice actors, when they practice their craft, you can't tell they're acting.
Right.
Like, you think
like,
that is their
I never
voice.
felt like he held his own in that game. Again, I can't remember the actor who did the
fake.
boss.
It sounds like
but
somebody...
She was like really there and selling the drama in that game, and I didn't feel like... And then like she'd say something and I'd be like, oh, wow, wow. And then Snake would be like, why did you abandon me? And I'm just like, dude, like, we need someone who doesn't sound like a caricature from a John Carpenter 80s movie.
It really does sound sometimes like he's just putting on like a fake voice. And in that video the Game Informer put out, like, he does the voice. Like, he jumps into it and out of it and into it and out of it. And it's a totally like a put on thing. Like, he even talks about how he has to like specially breathe and kind of swallow his words so they come from like the back of his throat. It's like you watch Nolan North work. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do that crap. No. Like he changes his voice. He doesn't always sound the same, but it's not like this kind of like trick that he's doing, I guess is the best way to put it. And that's what David Hayter does when he does Snake. It's like this trick that he does with his voice.
And there's nothing wrong with doing that for a voice acting role, but like when you're...
As long as it's a bit part.
Right, it's like when your role is like the main character of the entire game. I mean, I'm sure at the time he didn't realize he was going to do like 6 more games, and like they were going to have hours and hours and hours and hours of dialogue. I can't even imagine how much tea that guy went through in a day. But it's like, I feel like, you know, it fits in with the kind of presentation of 1 and 2 for the most part. But like they you know, not that I ever thought the storytelling in Metal Gear really hit the point of like being good.
Yeah.
But like there's a step up between 2 and 3 in terms of the voice presentation, and I feel like Snake's voice in that feels like a throwback. And I can also understand why they'd want to replace him, because it's a different character.
Yeah.
And that's Big Boss. It's not Solid Snake.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if they were... I'm not surprised they didn't manage to land Kurt Russell for that, which apparently was the guy who they wanted for Big Boss in Metal Gear Solid 3. And I'm trying to picture that, and I can't. I can't picture Kurt Russell doing that part. That's hard. That's really hard for me. You know, what was it? Kiefer Sutherland made more sense to me when I heard he was going to be. But then they didn't even use him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is like, you know, at the end of the day, in the latest Metal Gear, like, Kiefer Sutherland hardly had any lines at all. Like, Snake didn't hardly talk.
Not in... I mean, in the audio logs, yeah.
Right,
in the game itself, he had hardly anything.
He was like a mute, basically.
Yeah. I mean, most of his voice acting seemed to be heavy breathing.
Yeah.
If you ran long enough, you'd be like, okay, yeah, cool. Nice work, Kiefer.
I'm really shocked. I actually did not see that he said he had never met Kojima.
That's what it said. It said in the quote that I picked up. It said I'm not getting it verbatim, I'm sure, but he basically said, like, you know, I never met the man, but I'm sure he's he seems very creatively, you know, adept, but he doesn't seem like a very good businessman to me because of how basically referring to how Hayter felt he'd been treated in terms of being the voice of Snake for so long and then being, you know, tried to have been cast away. Basically,
well, in that video of the Game Informer posted, like, there are people that worked with him and beside him that basically back him up. Like, pretty much everything he says, they're all like, he's right. Like, that happened. Like, it wasn't handled right. We were put in weird positions where we were kind of told to be like the bad guy, and we didn't agree with the decision, but we were the person who had to like deliver the message. Like, it honestly just sounds like Kojima Studio and Konami and that whole thing was just crazy dysfunctional. Like, like, now it's so funny when all this news started first breaking. Like, me too. Personally, I felt the same way. Like, it was hard for me to believe that all this was happening, because you look at Metal Gear, you're like, it's a golden ticket. Like, keep making the games. Everyone's happy. Konami makes a ton of money. Kojima's happy. He makes a ton of money. He has creative freedom to do whatever he wants with his games. Like, it seemed like too perfect of a setup, and then it starts to crumble, and you're like, how could that be? But then you start hearing like the stories from behind the scenes, and it's like it all starts to kind of add up and make sense why it wasn't going to work long term. So I think what I would take away from this is, like, never judge the book by its cover.
Yeah. Or even...
And also never assume that, like, you know, your heroes that you have in the industry are like these squeaky clean. Like I would say I probably look at Miyamoto that way, but I'm probably wrong. Like, I'm sure there are people who probably worked with Miyamoto. They're like, he's a jerk.
Oh, I think just about anybody who's on the Metroid Prime team will tell you that.
Yeah, because didn't they say that he would come and they'd be like, it was like Darth Vader coming to the Death Star?
And he would just rip the whole thing apart and they'd have to basically start over.
Yeah.
I
think his phrase was flip the tea table or whatever.
Yes.
He would come in and flip the tea table.
Flip the tea table.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but, we put these developers in such high regard, and we admire them so much. And look, you can admire them for their work and their creativity, but at the end of the day, they're like human beings, too.
But also, like, it's a creative effort, and it's a team effort, and egos are going to rub up against each other, and it's like that that audio that leaked of Christian Bale screaming at the cinematographer in Terminator Salvation, and it's like everyone, a lot of people that have never worked in like a creative field like that were like, oh my god, what a horrible person, like, and I'm like, dude, I guarantee you they were having drinks together by that evening, because that's just what that's happened so often, like on our shows, and two people have a fundamental disagreement, have something that they really believe is the way to go with the creative process, and like you just start screaming at each other, and it goes crazy, and like and
then 5 minutes later, you're
2
like,
hours
I can't
later,
believe
like,
we just did that.
Yeah, it's like, and one person gets their way, or the other person gets their way, or there's some kind of compromise, or whatever, and like after everything's and it all
you hug it out.
You hug it out, and you realize that it all comes down to like everybody just wants what you're making to be the best it can be.
Yeah, and everyone's passionate and cares about it a lot. So.
Yeah. And so, like on one but I think Hayter, from what he describes, really was disrespected by them. And on one hand, I kind of agree with the idea of like, yeah, you want to get maybe a better voice actor for Snake or a different one in there to kind of like keep up with the times, but at the same time, you got to man up and tell this man that we're not going to recast the role, and like thank you for your effort and thank you for all this, but like we're going to move on to something different, and that's just how it's done. I also feel like
he was a little entitled, like he just assumed that like because I did Snake, like I am Snake.
Yeah.
Like, he has an ego as well. It's not just Kojima.
He works in Hollywood. He's a screenwriter, and he's done a bunch of stuff. And so, like, but again, if he was no longer that role, I think he was expecting someone to come to him and say, like, "Hey, we're going to go with a different choice," because that's how you do it in his business, I guess. Right. And they didn't do that way. And it's funny because it's like Kojima didn't need to fly out here and tell him himself. He just had to. Even just have somebody from Konami USA just say like, "Hey, meet with Hayter and tell him like we're going to do some, go with a different actor."
Even just do it on Skype, like whatever.
Yeah.
Even a phone call, like whatever.
Yeah. Whatever.
This is like, think about this is like
treat the man like a person.
Exactly, and this is your lead voice actor for like your biggest project, your most successful project ever.
And like to the point that when someone says the title of your game, a lot of people will just respond with Metal Gear.
Right. Exactly.
They identify him with the brand so closely. It's like, that's a big change.
I can't believe they never met. That just completely blows my mind. How's that even possible? Look, when they made for the first Metal Gear, like, he wasn't a hotshot developer then. Like, he was just kind of like figuring it all out.
Yeah. Well, I figured he just directed the Japanese version, and Konami USA did. I mean, thankfully Konami USA didn't record Metal Gear Solid 1 in the same closet they recorded Symphony of the Night. But like, I don't know. They used like real quality voice actors on Metal Gear Solid 1 for the big cartoon names for the time, and they all went under assumed names, but you had Cam Clark in there, you had Leonardo the Ninja Turtle. That's a recognizable guy as Liquid Snake,
for sure. Yeah.
And he was great. I know a lot of people make fun of him for like being instantly recognizable as himself, but it's like, hey, Liquid Snake wouldn't be the same without that like crazy like nasal English accent.
Yeah.
Hello, brother. Yeah. Like that, But that's the thing is like moving into Metal Gear Solid 3, he kind of was moving away from that kind of hammy, sort of like over the top delivery that like you kind of needed in the era where you couldn't even see the character's eyes.
Right.
It was more of a radio show with some pictures.
You're right. Yeah.
And Metal Gear Solid 3 was kind of where
that was kind of the turning point.
Turning point. 2 showed that like, oh, we can do some much more nuanced stuff with the physical acting of the characters. So maybe in 3 you want a voice that can match that a little more. I can see why Kojima would make that decision. I just don't.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the decision.
Yeah, I just don't see why you don't.
Although a lot of people do. I mean, a lot of people are still pissed off that he wasn't.
Oh, people love
Snake.
Well, because we don't like change.
Yeah.
And you don't want to. Because on one hand, I'm like, yeah, I could totally see someone should have been recast for Naked Snake in Metal Gear Solid 3. But at the same time, I start thinking about that game with a different voice in that role, and I'm just like, oh, it feels weird.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to It was hard in Metal Gear Solid 5 for me. It's like, on one hand, like, yeah, I get it, but on the other hand, it's like, it's weird to hear Kiefer Sutherland's voice coming out of that guy.
Like, yeah, I would hear it, and I wouldn't even assume that it was like Snake talking.
I had that problem in the audio logs. I'm like, which one is Snake? I'm not sure who's talking. They all sound the same.
You're right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. So
at least if David Hayter was there, I know which one was Snake.
You're damn right. You're damn right about that one. That's for sure. So, yeah. We look up to these guys, these developers, and for a lot of reasons they deserve it. They deserve our admiration and our praise. But at the end of the day, they're human beings just like us. Yeah. They put their pants on one leg at a time, and they have to crap every day. So,
preferably not in that order.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go to our trailer of the week for this week. Dark Souls 3, right on the cusp of being released. Did you give in and do the whole trick to start playing the Japanese version now?
No. I have plenty to do without jumping the gun on that release.
Yeah. I've been playing like Quantum Break, and I'm trying to finish off Pokken Tournament. Just finally put up our Game Eval for the Division.
Put it this way: if I had done that, we wouldn't have talked about Adrift today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but a lot of people are.
Right.
Do at your own peril, by the way, because they could pull the cord on that like at any time.
Yeah.
So.
I have no idea. I mean, I think if they were going to, they probably would have by now.
Yeah.
But
totally playable though. If you want to do it again, just go. If you want to do it, you can just go to the Dark Souls 3 page and click guides on the channel nav, and it'll take you to a little guide that shows you how to do it. If you want to do it, so lots of promotional. When's that come out officially?
Is that April?
It comes out in like a week and a half in the U.S. So there's like a 2-week delay between Japan and the U.S.
I think I just wait and play it safe, but that's me.
Yeah. It was outsold by Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 3. Its first week in Japan.
You can't fight City Hall and Dragon Quest.
Apparently.
It doesn't shut the country down like it used to, but it's still...
It did sell really well, though. Dark Souls 3 started out, it sold like 200 and some thousand units its first week in Japan, which is a great sales for Japan right now. So it's doing very well. So promotional media is coming out for this game like mad. Like a lot of the publications have in fact done the trick and are playing the Japanese version, putting up lots of gameplay. But this trailer of the week is really refreshing. It's an animated take on Dark Souls done by Eli Roth, who is the director of the horror movies Hostel, among others. Some people admire him, some people not so much.
He's a pretty good fit for this, though.
He is, and they did a really great job on this. It's just a couple minutes long, but here it is, an animated short for Dark Souls 3 from director Eli Roth.
Dark Souls.
Not a whole lot of Eli in that. There's the eyeball
A couple
shot.
of things.
Yeah.
You can see the pedigree.
Yeah, for sure. So we did get some questions. We should have asked you guys 4 questions before we went to the trailer of the week, but totally slipped our mind. It also slipped my mind to bring the iPad today, by the way. Today has been an absolutely awful day for me, by the way. Like, it is
that. We had for a while you thought you'd left one of our microphones on Michael Pachter.
Yeah, I slept last 3.5 hours last night because I had to be in downtown LA really early to shoot with Pachter. And then it was a big rush to get out of there, and I thought I left stuff there and I didn't, and I sounded an alarm over that. I've just been scrambling all day, people. So please bear with me for episode 43. I feel like I'm a little off my game tonight. So let's see. We do have some great questions. Here's one from Dyson XP. With all your experience writing reviews, do you ever have difficulty with any of them? Writer's block, getting your thoughts down properly? If so, how do you overcome it? Walk away. That's exactly what I do. I honestly, by the time I go to review a game, I'm ready to review it. I take notes while I'm reviewing it, and I keep those notes organized. I've talked about this on Invisible Walls many years ago, but I have kind of a system that I use when I do reviews or game evals, and I've been doing it for forever. It's worked for me really well. But by the time I sit down to write the eval or review, whatever you want to call it, it just flows. I can type really fast. I think I can type 70, 80 words a minute. And so, for instance, the game eval for The Division, a lot of you have probably already looked at that and see how long it is. It took me about 2 hours and 10 minutes to write that. So, and then I went back over it one more time to just polish it up and clean it up here and there. But I think the key is just making sure that you're really organized while you're playing the game. So you make sure that any important thoughts that you have, you kind of jot down so you don't forget. But I don't use those notes when I write the review or the eval. I don't sit there and be like, oh, I need to mention this, I need to mention that. Just typing them the first time when you put the notes down, it makes a mental note. And then I think it's important to not actually use those notes because the stuff that you remember is the stuff that's most important. And what you'll find is that the things that really matter stuck in your mind just from typing them, and the things that don't matter kind of just melt away and go away all on their own. So that's kind of my process. I've been writing for a long time, so I don't really get writer's block per se.
I only have a problem. I write very similarly. I sometimes take notes, but I never look at them.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll be like, oh, I didn't mention that thing, and I'll look at the review and be like, it wasn't
Doesn't
that
need
important.
it. Yeah, there's a certain part of trimming that has to take place as well.
But I think the main these days, I've been writing them for 16 years now. These days, it's an instinct. It's a reflex rather.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes I will get a little stuck on a very positive review if I really loved something. It's harder to write the really positive reviews. And when I get stuck on that, what I'll do is I'll just start, because usually I like to write from the start to the finish. I just start at the beginning and I write until
That's
the review is
what I do.
done.
I write from beginning to
But
end.
if I get stuck on a game that I'm very positive on, I will just start writing about the stuff I like. And that will kind of usually be the middle of the review, and then I'll kind of build out from there. And that's usually how I kind of find a groove for that. And a matter of fact, I think the game eval format is way easier for me to write a very positive review in that regard.
By design, it structures everything for you.
Because part of it, when I would write the old reviews or reviews for other places, I'm trying to think of segues and ways to kind of get into this and kind of connect this to that, and the kind of segmented version, segmented format of the game eval makes it real simple to just I don't need to artsy it up. I just need to tell you what that part is.
And also, the other thing I like about the evals is it forces you automatically to think about every facet of the game. Mm-hmm. A lot of times with more freeform reviews, it's very easy to kind of forget something that's really important. In hindsight, in GT, I would put up reviews sometimes and be like, oh crap, I totally forgot I wanted to mention that. Mm-hmm. Because you weren't forced to talk about every element of a game every time you wrote a review. And with the game evals, you are. And so while you're writing that, you're thinking just organically of every sort of element and facet of the game. So it makes it easier. I do write the game evals faster than I wrote game reviews for game trailers, GameSpot, Tech TV, G4, etc. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see. How do you guys feel? This is from Toasty Will. How do you guys feel FPS games will work in VR? When will the first VR Call of Duty game come out?
A very good question.
I don't know if a Call of Duty game will ever be in VR. Like a proper one. Like, I think they may make some weird offshoot, like Call of Duty VR or
like
something.
a Wii version kind of thing.
Yeah. But I don't think like a proper Call of Duty will be in VR because it's too much about competition and...
Yeah, I can't imagine it being the same game, really. You know, like, particularly I can't imagine, like, playing multiplayer with VR people against, like, normal controller people. Like, it just seems like you can move and turn too quickly with a controller in comparison to what you can do in VR without making yourself dizzy.
I think the other thing, too, is that if I wanted to play a first-person shooter in VR, I would probably just go play laser tag. I mean, isn't that...
Well, I think there will be, you know, it's places like Dave and Buster's or like, you know, family, whatever you call arcades now, family fun centers. I don't know. I feel like there's gonna be like laser tag style like VR things that are like that.
We don't even need it though. I mean, you just play laser tag. Like, I think there's certain genres that are gonna work really well with VR, and there's certain ones that just don't make a ton of sense.
Somebody will try it.
Oh yeah, I mean, there already are first-person shooters on the way. There's a couple of them in development already, but I think that's one of those genres that I'm least excited to experience in VR of, like, all the genres. Like, that is one that I just don't see a lot of enhancement coming from it. Again, like, if I wanted to run around and actually try to shoot, I'd play paintball or laser tag. So, yeah.
Odin5 really wants to know, do you think the PS4K will run all games on PS4 retroactively at 60 frames per second?
All PS4 games? No. Most? Yeah. It's no guarantee.
No.
That just because you have the more power that suddenly it's going to all run at 60 frames per second.
Right.
If it's the old games aren't optimized for that hardware, there are still some that could have some lazy coding that may not hit 60.
Yeah, like I don't know if you're going to fix the frame timing problem in Bloodborne by just throwing hardware at it.
But I think they'll all run better and all look better. But all hit 60, I would say no.
And do you think that's something that they would have to patch for each game? Or is it just a matter
I don't think so.
You just the hardware.
Well, I guess it depends on how they wrote the initial code.
Mm-hmm.
I would think it would scale.
Because with a PC, you just sort of can scale it up. But like, you know, if that was never, if you know, it was never considered an option on a PS4
I mean, these are
game.
basically PCs anyway.
Yeah.
So I would assume they wrote the code. I mean, a lot of these games have PC versions already and are built on PCs. Mm-hmm. Like, their dev kits are all basically PCs. So I would say, yeah, I think they probably would scale just fine, just like a normal PC game would.
I guess we'll see.
Because, I mean, you don't really have, like the cell processor or any of these proprietary pieces of kit anymore, which would keep it from working in the past. They're just basically mid-range PCs at this point. So, yeah, they should scale just fine. But we'll see.
I wonder how many people already have a PS4 but would consider buying PS4K on top of that for the better performance.
What was your question?
My question is, like, how many people, like, kind of in the chat, just like as a show of yeses or whatever, how many people who have a PS4 already would be willing to buy a PS4K on top of that for the better performance?
Oh, but would they sell their old PS4?
Yeah, or like throw their other PS4 in the other room or something. I don't know, you know.
Yeah,
like,
I would think a good many.
I mean, obviously we don't know the price, so that's a very important.
I would think a good many sifters, because, you know, we're like the corest of the core, basically, and we're going to all try to buy the best hardware that we can. I mean, the average consumer, I would say that's probably 40%, 35%. On Sifted, I would say it's probably like 70. That's my guess. Here's one from W. Matthew. I know you don't like Let's Plays. I didn't say that at all. I didn't say I didn't like Let's Plays. But there are many games that got super popular because of them. Minecraft, Binding of Isaac, KSP, and many others. Would you be okay with losing all those games/genres just to stop Let's Plays? First of all, Minecraft did not get popular from Let's Plays. I don't know where you got that from. Like,
I would say Let's Plays arguably got popular because of Minecraft.
Minecraft made the Let's Play. It's like you got those things reversed right there. Like, Minecraft was a smash hit before it was ever released. Like, GT, everybody in GT owned Minecraft, like, pre-ordered Minecraft, like, just from playing it, like, that little, like, demo that they put out.
It was a sickness, really.
Yeah, it really was. Like it never really resonated with me, and I fiddled around with it a little bit.
Yeah, but you were like the only one in the office not playing it after work. Basically.
Oh, you're right. No, it was insane. Like, people ate it up. It had nothing to do with Let's Plays. Binding of Isaac, I mean, how successful was the Binding of Isaac? Like,
pretty successful.
I mean, it did okay.
But again, that game is like a roguelike randomized game. You don't get the same experience over and over in that game. So that's the key, I think, is like I wouldn't say Binding of Isaac is relevant to the That Dragon Cancer conversation because I can just put in Binding of Isaac and have a totally different experience than you did.
Here's the example you should have given: Five Nights at Freddy's. That's the game that became popular from Let's Plays, and if they went away and that game went away, I wouldn't shed a tear. Not a one, brother. It would not make me sad at all. Like, that game to me epitomizes the Let's Play culture. It's basically a piece of crap game with cheap jump scares, and which makes it fun to watch other people play it, I guess.
But the lore...
What lore?
I don't know. I watched like that thing that Sifted curated about like the whole Five Nights at Freddy's story in like 30 minutes or whatever. Yeah. I still don't understand what the hell it's supposed to be about. Either.
But that's the game that became popular because of Let's Play.
That's definitely the game I associate with Let's Plays in my head. You say Let's Play, I see that stupid bear.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much my first association.
To answer the rest of your question, oh wait, now it's gone. I can't reference it again.
Where was it? I bet I can find it.
Oh wow, there's so many questions.
There it is. Was it too popular Minecraft? Okay with losing all those genres just to stop Let's Plays? No, I think you answered it.
No, okay. Just want to make sure I answered every facet of your question. Here's one. Don't you think that this is from Geno Mike 1 question? Don't you think the Dark Souls games would be more enjoyable if they had a more coherent story that you progress through? I hope Neo, which is a game from Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja, satisfies this need for me.
I mean, I don't get wrapped up in the story of Dark Souls at all. I don't really, I like the atmosphere.
Do you think you could if it was a little more overt?
Maybe, but like the people who love that game love piecing together the weird story stuff out of like the little clues and lore scraps. That like I wouldn't want to take that away from them.
Yeah, I have no problem.
I have tons of games I can play if I want a robust story. There's not too many games that do what Dark Souls does in terms of kind of parceling out the information like a puzzle, and I wouldn't want to. That's an appeal. Like I know that a lot of the Dark Souls fans have that as like one of their main kind of, or at least secondary appeals of the game to them after the gameplay, and I wouldn't want to take that away from them.
I agree with Matt 1000%. I like how that series tells the story. I like that it's there if you really want to dig. If not, it's just kind of like the game just kind of has a mood or a tone, but not necessarily a narrative. I'm totally fine with it. I'm glad that there's at least one game that does it and does it really well.
Like I don't particularly care to do the legwork myself on that, but I'll read the kind of the summaries or like the videos to sort of explain what their theories on things are, and I think that's fun. And I think that's enough a part of the Dark Souls experience that I don't think you could change that without changing the series substantially, possibly for the negative.
Let's see. Let's answer a couple more if we've got them. I can never pronounce this name. My XEQ. How am I supposed to pronounce that?
I'll go with Mixek.
Mixek? What do you think of the huge gap between the Japanese release of Dark Souls 3 in the U.S. and the workaround? Dark Souls games benefit from the first few weeks of everyone is in the dark. Dark Souls 3 has been awful as far as having to avoid Twitch and the internet, not to mention spoiler-heavy ads.
What's the huge gap? Is it like weeks?
It's a few weeks, yeah. That's not a huge gap.
But look, if you're really into a series... Let's talk about Mother 3.
Yeah, exactly. But look, if you're a huge fan of a series,
right,
like
3 weeks can seem like an eternity.
Look, the publications have all grabbed the Japanese version, and they are posting media all over the place.
And he's, that is true. Like I know Dark Souls 2 and Bloodborne. There was a lot of, a lot of the appeal at the beginning is like no one knows how any of this works.
And it's
like,
a
everybody's
communal
gonna
thing.
discover
People
it.
go on message boards and share their experiences. And
now you're not going to have that. You're just going to have people stepping in who've read the Japanese message boards. They're like, no, it's like this.
Yeah, it's going to be all
over.
scattershot as well.
The process of discovery, like we just had the story question, like the process of kind of discovery and digging these things out and finding how they all work really seems to be kind of core to the Dark Souls experience. And yeah, I mean, I don't care, but like it's too bad they couldn't have done a simultaneous release just because that's so much a part of how the games have worked in the past.
The game's also in English. Like, there's an English version out there already.
Yeah, why
like,
did they
really
wait?
No
I don't
reason.
know.
Yeah, I feel your pain, man. It does suck, but nothing you can do about it, man. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Here's one from Sterling Life Co. With the news and rumors of what Defy is doing to the Escapists, would it surprise you guys to see that team go the Patreon route like GT and others?
Well, it ain't dead yet.
Yeah, they're not dead. I mean, they're just. Look, based on what happened with GT and Defy.
Yeah, Defy is on quite the slaughter rampage this year.
It sounds like they're just getting rid of all their core games coverage to me.
Yeah.
Like they've just figured out or decided that they just don't want anything to do with core games coverage, and so they got rid of GT, and now it looks like they're calling down the Escapists. And look, I don't want to put a nail in the coffin of the guys who are still working there, so I'm not going to say that they're going to go away. So they are still around. They closed the North Carolina office. They're all being consolidated up in Seattle. It looks like Zero Punctuation and Yahtzee are going to stick around. So if that were to happen, could I see them doing a Patreon? I
don't know if they have the following for that.
I don't know if they do either.
I mean, GT is a very different beast. It's a much more personality-driven.
Yeah, I mean,
thing.
I don't honestly. Other than Yahtzee, like I don't know.
And Yahtzee's not going to have trouble finding a new home.
Yeah, look, somebody either a site will sign Yahtzee or he'll just start his own YouTube channel
Yeah.
or whatever. He's not going away.
I mean, he has a team that does those for him.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You know, it's not just him making those. So
Right.
I'm sure they would find another place to land.
Yeah, some site will pick him up. I mean, even though I feel like he's lost a little steam over the last couple of years, he's been doing it for a long time now.
8 years.
I know, it's insane.
I mean,
so
yeah.
he'll land somewhere. The other guys, like, again, personally, I just don't know them. I never really met them. I don't know why in all my years in the industry, like, I never met any people from the Escapists. Maybe it's because they were in North Carolina.
Well, they're in Seattle, North Carolina. So
Yeah.
the HQ is in Seattle. I met people from the Escapists at GD, but some of them, this was way back in, like, 2008-ish, when like they were run by some ex-Tech TV people. Like, we had some connections there, and I think it's an entirely different crew now.
It seems like it.
All that has turned over. The other people went on to other things.
Yeah. So we wish them luck. Like, hopefully, they can go up to Seattle and they can reorganize and get things headed in the right direction. I mean, they may be headed in the right direction as it is, but Defy is just kind of...
Yeah, judging by game trailers, it doesn't matter whether you're going in the right direction or not. If Defy decides you're not in their game plan, you're not in their game plan.
Yep. All right, so one more question, if we can find a good one. Lots of questions about Dark Souls.
Well, it's coming.
Yeah, it is coming.
Coming up.
Yeah, we have somebody working on the review right now. I'm not reviewing it, by the way.
Is that one going to be thrown at me, maybe?
No, there's already somebody who's got it,
Okay,
who's working
good.
on it, actually. You should have volunteered, though. I would have assigned it to you.
I did not have a good time reviewing Dark Souls 2. I gotta say, having a deadline on those games is real nasty.
Yeah. Login loss. Here's a quick one. Are there plans to ever sit in the guest seat of Easy Allies or have one come over as a guest assisted? We're totally down with working with those guys, and if they invite me to be on their show, I'd definitely do it. So who knows? We'll see. I think those guys are just trying to figure it all out right now. I totally missed their first podcast.
Yeah, so did I.
Like, I didn't subscribe to their YouTube channel right away because it was called Coming Soon, and so I was afraid that they were going to not use that channel. Like, maybe it was like one of their personal channels, and they were going to create like an official Easy Allies one. Nope. Turns out that was the one that they were going to use, and I totally missed their first episode of their podcast, and ended up watching it like 5 days after it came out. So, just so you guys know, once I discovered it was too late to kind of curate it because it was like yesterday's news, but we'll be curating all their content going forward to the site now that we know where their channel is. So we'd love to collaborate with those guys. We'll see what happens, though.
Oh, and to answer Nolan Elric a couple of questions. I did see Batman vs. Superman. I did not hate it, but I didn't like it. And I think it's time to move on from Zack Snyder. Affleck was great. I will watch a solo Affleck Batman movie, no problem. But they need to move on and find a director that can tell a story. But Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms, yo. And in this.
Matt is a lot more positive about this right now. We talked about this movie for a good 30 minutes before.
If I get too into it, I'm going to dissect why the entire story doesn't work and why the direction is some of the most inept things I've ever seen. But there's the bones of a good idea in that movie.
But based on our earlier conversation, it sounded like he hated it. So
I hate that that's what we have to settle for from those characters now. I don't think it's as bad as the reviews made it out to be. It's not a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. It might have been.
You made it sound that way.
It might have been. It might have been if Ben Affleck wasn't cast and they got someone equal to Henry Cavill as Batman, and I just had to watch two giant human-shaped logs of wood sleepwalk their way through that terrible script. But there's a couple of good. Affleck really carries the film on his back to the degree it's watchable, but it's way too long and it's way too dark and it's way too joyless. And frankly, I'd rather watch Avengers again.
Oh. All right, so before we go, there's one last thing I want to talk about. So when GT went through his whole Patreon, I was getting lots of messages on the site and direct messages and emails and messages on Twitter and messages on our Facebook account asking how people could contribute to Sifted beyond subscribing. And so Brent and I have been working on a brand new donation system for Sifted. It is pretty much done. I think it's going to launch tomorrow. I didn't want to just kind of put it up on the site and have it be there. I wanted to talk to you guys about it kind of mano a mano. So basically how it works is you can donate whatever you want to Sifted. It can be $1, it can be $5, whatever. You can donate whatever you want. But we do have a kind of a cool thing where if you hit a $50 threshold with your donation to the site, you will become Sifted Elite. And when you're Sifted Elite, you get a custom avatar frame color for around your avatar. And every time you post in our comments or in the forums, you have a unique color behind your text. So, and it lasts forever. Once you hit that $50 threshold, you will be elite on Sifted for forever. So, look, if you guys are subscribing, you've already done your part. We don't expect anybody to donate any money. As subscribers, you guys have already gone above and beyond to subscribe to a brand new site, but a ton of people asked for this and wanted a way to be able to help the site financially in any way that they could. And so Brent and I basically just ground through this over this past weekend. It's pretty much done. And like I said, it should be up in the next day or two. So, again, no pressure. We don't expect anyone to donate. Whatever you give us is more than awesome. But people are kind of asking, why don't you do a Patreon? And we were like, why do we do a Patreon when we've already went through all the work to set up our own payment system on the site? So it's not like some Patreon thing where there's goals or anything like that. It's just basically our promise to you that we will use that money to secure the longevity of Sifted. So, again, totally up to you. You can donate as little or as much as you want, or you can donate nothing at all. We won't hold anything against you guys, but we did want to give some kind of reward and recognition for those who did, thus the elite status and the avatar frame and the posting color. Also, everyone who becomes elite will be mentioned by name at the end of an episode of GameFace to thank you guys. So, maybe next week we'll have our first elites to mention at the end of the show.
The weekly elite rundown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if not, that's totally fine. Like I said, you guys have already done more than your share just subscribing to the site. No pressure whatsoever. So thank you for supporting Sifted so far. Thanks in advance to anybody who actually uses our donation program. Look for it in the next couple days. And I think that's it, man. Anything else you want to add?
Nope. Just that I agree with Nolan. I do agree with you. That was the best Batman ass-kicking sequence ever.
Yeah, he mentioned that earlier. He was like, it was the best Batman. He said it reminded me of the Arkham games.
Yeah. I think Snyder probably played Arkham City or something and was like, oh, that's how Batman should fight, and so it is. And that scene is amazing. It's great.
All right. So on that note, that's it for GameFace episode 43. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.